Chapter 2964. Luo Yu glanced at them and calculated before he said, "So in this way, it's me, Du Fan, Fan Lin, Gu Mo, and Wei Feng. If we add Hui Lang, it'll be 6 people? 6 people in a small mercenary group? Yes, you're all experienced. Here, you're all in a small group, so it shouldn't be a big problem for you," Feng Jiu said. He looked at them and said, "Let's arrange things like this for now. Go and prepare yourselves. Also, Qing Sheng, when you're leaving, don't let anyone see you leave from this residence. Otherwise, you'll be targeted," Feng Jiu instructed. "Yes, master, don't worry. I understand," Bai Qingsheng replied. "Hui Lang, are you going?" They looked at Hui Lang and asked. Hui Lang scratched his head and asked, "When are we going?" "The carriage I ordered needs to be checked in 2 days. Later, we'll go to the Mercenary Association to take a look. After registering, we'll accept a mission and leave. If you don't want to go, you can leave," Luo Yu said. Hui Lang thought for a moment and said, "It doesn't seem like there's anything wrong with staying. How about this? I'll ask if the carriage is ready and ask them to hurry up. Then, I'll go with you. With Master and the Ghost Doctor here, nothing will happen. There's no need to worry too much." Thus, after discussing, they went their separate ways. Du Fan and the others went to the Mercenary Association to register a mercenary group. Hui Lang went to see when the carriage would be ready. Bai Qingsheng was also preparing to leave for the Lucian sect. Leng Hua continued to observe all the big and small matters in the manor, while Leng Shuang took her with her. Seeing that Feng Jiu had arranged everything, Xin Yuan Mose went to the cave in the back of the mountain to cultivate in seclusion. Feng Jiu, who was idling in the residence, flipped through medical books and researched medicine. A day passed in the blink of an eye. The next day, Hui Lang arrived at Fengjiu Courtyard and called out, "Ghost Doctor, the carriage can be retrieved today. Do you want to come with us to take a look? If there's anything you're not satisfied with, you can ask them to change their defeat." Fengjiu was mixing the medicine. He wrapped the medicine and handed it to Bai Qingsheng. "Keep some for yourself and give the rest to Luo Yu and the others. Tell them the use of these medicine." "Yes," Bai Qingsheng replied before she walked out. Fengjiu looked at Hui Lang, stood up, and flicked his robe. "That's fine. I've been staying in a mansion for the past few days and haven't gone out at all. Let's go take a look around. Shall we leave now?" Hui Lang asked. "Call Leng Shuang and ask her to bring Hao Er along. We'll go shopping and buy some things." She smiled and walked out. Hui Lang hurriedly followed. Including the carriage that had been scratched on the street last time, the carriage that the family had sent as compensation, and the one that they were going to retrieve now, they had 3 carriages. Thus, Fengjiu let Hui Lang drive the one that had been scratched and planned to sell this one on the way back. When they arrived at the place where Hui Lang had ordered the carriage, they stopped in front of the door. Fengjiu took a look and was slightly surprised. There's such a large carriage custom-made shop in the city. Chapter 2965. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and said, "Then I'll have to go in and take a look." A man inside saw Hui Lang and greeted him with a smile. "Young master, are you here to pick up the goods?" "I brought my wife here to take a look. I'll pick up the carriage later," Hui Lang said as he grinned at Fengjiu. "Madam, please come in." Leng Shuang followed behind with her child in her arms. When she heard Hui Lang call Fengjiu madam, she couldn't help but smile. Fengjiu only glanced at Hui Lang before walking in. The man led them in and said with a smile, "Madam, what would you like to see? Our weapons are all placed separately. I can bring you around to see if there's anything suitable." "Then let's take a look first. We'll talk about it when we see something suitable," Fengjiu said as she walked in slowly. The man looked at Fengjiu and introduced with a smile, "Madam, please take a look. These are the finished products that some customers brought over and asked our weaponsmiths to make. They're still here and haven't been taken away. For example, the styles and swords of these weapons can be modified according to your preferences. Like this one. This hairpin looks ordinary, but it's actually an offensive magic weapon. And this boat is a defensive flying device." As the man introduced her, he pondered. Could this woman in red be the one who had been secretly rumored recently? He looked at her in his heart, but he didn't dare to be too presumptuous. "We won't look at the rest. Where are the ones that you can sell?" Fengjiu stopped and asked. "Ha, madam, they're here. Please come with me." The man smiled and led them to the other side. "The weapons here are all made by our weaponsmiths. We have all kinds of weapons. Madam, please take a look and see if there's anything you like." The man smiled and said, "Our weaponsmiths are distributed in various cities and towns. This square city is only one of our distribution points. Our weaponsmiths are all first class, so the weapons they make are naturally extraordinary. As long as madam likes it, you won't go wrong if you buy it." Feng Jiu picked up a dagger and looked at it. She saw that the dagger's jacket was exquisitely carved and was inlaid with a few gems. It was very gorgeous. She lifted the cover of the dagger and looked at it. A sharp cold light flashed, and a trace of icy aura spread out. "Good dagger," she praised. The cold light of this dagger was very intimidating. It was a treasure that could cut iron like mud. "Ha, madam has good eyesight. This is the only dagger in our building. It's a soul-chasing dagger made by a weaponsmithing venerable. This soul-chasing dagger isn't simple. As long as you drip blood on it and recognize it as its owner, this soul-chasing dagger can be hidden in your hand. Moreover, it's incomparably sharp. Even a copper wall will be left with a light scratch." Feng Jiu played with it while looking at the dagger and the gorgeous jacket. Seeing that the two didn't seem to match, she asked, "Did you add the jacket on the dagger yourself? It looks too gorgeous and doesn't match the dagger." Chapter 2966. However, if madam doesn't like this set, you can just buy this soul-chasing dagger. However, this soul-chasing dagger alone costs 200,000 crystals. The man said as he looked at Feng Jiu's expression. Hui Lang heard this and exclaimed, "You're robbing us. 200,000 crystals? This is just a broken dagger?" Hee, this is a dagger refined by a weapon refiner supremacy. It can't be compared to an ordinary dagger. The man said with a smile, still looking at Feng Jiu. He knew that whether he bought it or not, it was still up to her. "Take it first. Let's look at the others," Feng Jiu said as she continued to walk inside. Her gaze swept past the weapons and finally landed on a neatly folded black item. She gestured and asked, "What's that?" "That's a defensive soft armor. It's a mid-tier sacred weapon. It's refined from the toughest beast tendons and black spirit rhinoceros skin. It can withstand 3 attacks from a heavenly god. Its defensive power is extremely strong. Moreover, it has the effect of reducing force and reducing damage. It's a treasure that's hard to come by. Show it to me." She gestured. "All right." The man took it out and unfolded it for her to see. He said, "As long as you drip blood on it, the size of this defensive soft armor will change according to your figure. What's the price?" Hui Lang couldn't help but ask. This is cheaper than the previous dagger because this isn't a treasure refined by a weapon refiner supremacy. It's the work of a weapon refiner grandmaster. If madam wants it together, this defensive soft armor can be sold for 20,000 crystals. Take it. We'll settle the bill together later." Feng Jiu said and gestured for him to take it. "All right, madam. Let's look at the others. We also have things like boots and—" the man said as he brought out the items for her to see. However, looking at those items, Feng Jiu didn't have much interest. In the end, she only bought these 2 items. After settling the bill, she passed these 2 items to Long Shuang. "Drip blood on it and let's see." She gestured and hugged little Hao who was looking around at her arms. Long Shuang was stunned. "Master, this is for me?" "Yes, keep it for self-defense," Feng Jiu replied. "But it's so expensive." She thought that her master was buying it, but she didn't expect that it was for her. "It's fine, take it." As she spoke, she gestured for her. Seeing Master Long Shuang's the dagger disappeared from her hand. With a thought, the dagger, with Ass's hand, with ATST looking at this scene, Long Shuang was slightly surprised. It really became smaller. A smile appeared in her eyes, and she asked again, "Is there a place to change clothes?" "This way." The man glanced at Long Shuang and led her to the side. Not long after, Long Shuang, who had also put on the soft armor, came back and said, "Master, it really is as he said. It can automatically change size and is very light. I can't feel its weight." Yes, as long as it's useful. Fengjiu smiled and nodded. She said to the man, "Where's our carriage? Take us to see it." Chapter 29:67. The black cloth fell to the ground, and a luxurious yet low-key carriage appeared in front of them. Fengjiu looked around the carriage while Hui Lang went inside and opened some mechanisms. She nodded with satisfaction. "Not bad. It's really good. It's good that Madam is satisfied. This carriage cost a lot of money." Hui Lang grinned. "Did you pay for the carriage?" Fengjiu asked. "Yes, we can leave after we get the carriage," Hui Lang said. Seeing this, Fengjiu nodded and waved her sleeve. Two purple gold spirit deer appeared in front of them. Looking at the two beautiful spirit deer, Hui Lang's eyes widened. He wanted to touch the spirit deer with curiosity, but the spirit deer took a step back and avoided his hand. At the same time, they cried out. "Aha!" Little Hao who was in Fengjiu's arms, saw the spirit deer and immediately waved his hands excitedly and giggled. "Madam, these are the purple gold spirit deer? They're so beautiful. Is Madam going to use them to pull the carriage?" Hui Lang asked while looking at the two spirit deer. These two spirit deer actually didn't let him touch them? Fengjiu smiled. "Yes, this carriage will be pulled by them. Put the rope on them." Fengjiu carried little Hao forward and touched the antlers with his little hand. "Go." After hearing her words, the two spirit deer walked in front of Hui Lang. Hui Lang grinned and took the opportunity to touch the antlers. After the two spirit deer were tied, he said, "Madam, get in the carriage. Where do you want to go? I'll take you." "Wait." A voice came. Hui Lang looked back and saw a few figures walking over. Among them was a beautiful woman in red. When she saw Fengjiu, who was also in red, she frowned. At this time, Fengjiu's back was facing them. She didn't turn back to look at the voice behind her. Instead, she carried little Hao and stepped on a small stool to get into the carriage and sat inside. Lung Shuang also got into the carriage, but he sat outside and didn't go in. The people who arrived were immediately attracted by the two purple gold spirit deer. Seeing the two rare purple gold spirit deer become spirit beasts to pull the carriage, they couldn't help but feel a little pained. These are extremely precious purple gold spirit deer. Using them to pull a carriage? What a waste. A man shook his head and sighed. His eyes were glued to the two violet gold spirit deer. "I've never heard of purple gold spirit deer in Forest City. Could they be from outside?" Another man in embroidered clothes said. When he wanted to touch the deer's antlers, the purple gold spirit deer snorted and avoided him. The man in embroidered clothes was startled and laughed. "Interesting. I like it. Uft. These are purple gold spirit deer. Who doesn't like them?" The other two people said. At this time, the beautiful woman in red glanced at them and said, "Since you like them, why don't you let the owner sell these two spirit deer to us?" Gray Wolf, who was holding the leash, was slightly stunned when he heard this. He suspiciously sized up the beautiful woman in red. Because his gaze was too blatant, the woman in red coldly snorted and unhappily asked, "What are you looking at?" Chapter 29:68. How dare you? The beautiful woman in red was enraged. With a wave of her hand, a soft whip lashed out at Hui Lang. Hui Lang was about to retaliate when he saw another whip wrap around the woman's whip. The two whips lashed at each other, neither giving way to the other. He turned around and saw that it was Lung Shuang who had made the move. With a cheeky smile, he said excitedly, "Lung Shuang, you actually protected me." Fengjiu's lips curled into a smile when he heard this from inside the carriage. Why was Hui Lang so indecent? How could he still be in the mood to tease Lung Shuang when he was already in a fight? Lung Shuang glanced at him, but did not say anything. Instead, he tightened his grip on the whip and flung the woman's whip away. Because of the force, the woman was also pushed back a few steps before she could steady herself. Before she could speak, Lung Shuang asked coldly, "What are you doing? Did you just buy a soul-chasing dagger?" The beautiful woman asked. She stared at Lung Shuang and felt a little annoyed. Her whip was actually flung away by such a woman. Moreover, the whip in her hand did not seem to be inferior to hers. Long Shuang glanced at her and then looked at the man who had been introducing the weapons to them. He said coldly, "Is this how you handle things?" The man vaguely guessed the identity of Feng Jiao and the others, so he didn't dare to be careless. When he saw the woman in tight black clothes staring at him, he hurriedly said, "We didn't call them here." As he spoke, he looked at the brocade-clad people and said, "Young masters and young mistresses, your weapons have already been bought. If you continue to act like this, I'm afraid you will be blacklisted by our foundry." The beautiful woman clenched her teeth and stared at the woman in red sitting in the carriage without saying a word. However, now that the carriage door was closed, she could not see what the person inside looked like. She did not want to leave like this, but with one look, she knew that these people did not lack crystal stones. She had no other choice but to retreat to the side with her whip. Meanwhile, a man in luxurious clothes at the side stared at the two violet gold spirit deer for a few moments before he turned to look at Lung Shuang and asked, "Miss, may I ask if we can buy some antler powder from you?" Lung Shuang put away his whip and returned to his horse. He sat down and said to Hui Lang, "Let's go." "Okay," Gray Wolf answered, then jumped onto the carriage and drove the two purple gold spirit deer away. That man still wanted to say something, but the man in the building who couldn't stand it stepped forward and said, "Young masters, it's best if you don't provoke them. These people aren't ordinary people." Hearing this, the man in luxurious clothes turned to the man and asked, "What do you mean? You're not from here, right?" The man in the building asked with a smile. The man in luxurious clothes smiled. "That's right. We just arrived here yesterday. We plan to celebrate my uncle's birthday." "Oh, young masters and young mistresses, you have an extraordinary bearing. Presumably, your uncle is also a person of importance in the city?" the man said with a smile and stared at them. Hearing this, the man in luxurious clothes smiled. "My uncle is the head of the Jiang family, one of the 8 great families in Foursquare City." Chapter 2969. They looked at each other and asked, "What's the meaning of this?" Why did they feel that this person's smile was somewhat ambiguous? "You'll know when you make a trip to the Jiang family. I won't say much. I have to go back and greet the guests." "Excuse me." He smiled, cupped his hands in salute, and then turned to leave. Who was that, madam? Perhaps the ordinary people in the city didn't know, but the various forces knew. They probably already told their disciples to be careful not to provoke her when they went out. These people actually dared to snatch something from them? Were they tired of living? Looking at this scene, the man in luxurious clothes pondered and said, "How about this? I'll make a trip to the Jiang family first. Don't you want to make a trip to the main family? Then let's make an appointment to meet in the evening." Seeing this, the others nodded, seeing that the carriage wasn't something that ordinary people could afford, and the words of the man in the building made them feel somewhat uneasy. They were afraid that they would accidentally offend a powerful person. At that time, it would be too late for regrets. After they left, they went to their respective main families. Apart from the man in luxurious clothes who came to celebrate his uncle's birthday, the others were disciples of some of the city's branch families. This time, they also came with a mission. After they left, the man in the building also went inside and told the steward about receiving the fungio. On the other side, 2 purple gold spirit deer were pulling a luxurious and low-key carriage. However, it couldn't be low-key. Almost as soon as it entered the street, everyone's eyes fell on the spirit beast carriage. They had seen carriages and spirit beasts pulling carriages, but it was almost impossible to see such a rare purple gold spirit deer pulling a carriage. Even if someone obtained a spirit beast like the purple gold spirit deer, they would be kept in captivity. How could they be tied with ropes and become spirit beasts pulling carriages? Some people didn't recognize what kind of deer those two were, but they saw that the 2 spirit deer were exceptionally beautiful and knew that they were extraordinary. They began to whisper to each other, "What kind of deer are those? Why haven't I seen them before? I've also never seen such beautiful deer. How can these 2 spirit beasts be so strong to pull that carriage? These are purple gold spirit deer, rare among deer." It's said that the purple gold spirit deer's entire body is a treasure. The antler powder scraped from the antlers is a holy antidote, not to mention the deer blood. Ah, purple gold spirit deer? These are purple gold spirit deer? Aren't they very precious? How can they be used to pull carriages? Someone exclaimed with an expression of disbelief. Some people's eyes lit up when they heard that the violet gold spirit deer were full of treasures. They stared at the two adult violet gold spirit deer until they heard another low voice. Hey, you guys don't know? The person sitting in this car is no ordinary person. Hearing this, many people looked over and asked, "What do you mean?" Or, "He didn't even see a shadow of a person." This old man won't tell you. The old man said while stroking his beard. He glanced at them and didn't speak. I think you don't know. You're pretending to be mysterious. Chapter 2970. Grey Wolf hurriedly ordered the rope in his hand to stop the car. He looked at the woman who was charging towards the deer and shouted loudly, "What are you doing? Stop! Don't come close." However, the woman ran even faster because of his words. She rushed forward and tried to grab the antlers with both hands. When the purple gold spirit deer saw this, it lifted a hoof and kicked the woman several meters away. It didn't dare to use too much strength because its master had told it not to kill. It only let people get away from them. Ah! The woman screamed exaggeratedly. She fell to the ground and cried, "Murder! Murder!" Hui Lang stared. Before he could praise the spirit deer for its agility, he heard the woman scream exaggeratedly. She didn't stand up, but crawled on the ground and blocked the middle of the street, as if she wouldn't let them leave. Lung Shuang glanced at her, pursed his lips, and didn't say anything. Hui Lang handed the rope to Lung Shuang and got off the carriage. He walked towards the woman and shouted, "Hey, what are you screaming for? What are you doing blocking the street?" "The spirit deer kicked me. I'm seriously injured and can't get up. You have to compensate me. Compensate me." Before she finished, Hui Lang interrupted her. "Compensate you?" Hui Lang looked at the woman with a startled expression. It was clearly the woman who rushed forward. The spirit deer was protecting itself. How could it deliberately kick her? "No, compensate me for the spirit deer's antler powder," the woman quickly said, then lay on the ground and wailed again. The surrounding people looked at this scene and couldn't help but be dumbfounded. What a talent. She actually went up to extort? Wasn't she too bold? Did she even know who was sitting in the spirit beast carriage? Hearing the woman's words, Hui Lang couldn't help but laugh with his hands on his hips. "Spirit deer's antler powder? Is there something wrong with your head?" Seeing this, the woman immediately shouted at the top of her lungs, "Io, someone's dying. I'm dying. Ah." A mournful scream suddenly rang out in this bustling street. A smear of blood splashed out, causing the hearts of the surrounding people who were watching the show to tighten. The smiles on their faces disappeared. They swallowed their saliva and watched as the man with his hands on his hips pulled out his sword and sliced off one of the ears of the woman who was screaming on the ground. At the same time the ear flew out, a shrill scream rang out. The blood splattered all over the ground, causing them to involuntarily shiver. That was because the man with the sword was laughing just a moment ago, but in the next moment, he was like a god of death. His entire body emitted a fierce and cold killing intent. The ruthlessness in his body shot out from his eyes as he stared at the woman, causing others to feel that if he were to swing his sword, it would definitely be aimed at the woman's throat. "Shout again, and I'll cut off your hand," Hui Lang said coldly, his cold gaze carrying a trace of bloodthirst as he stared at the woman on the ground. When the woman heard this and saw the man's expression, she was so shocked that her face turned pale. She covered her cut-off ear with one hand and trembled as she climbed up from the ground with the other, muttering, I won't dare, don't kill me, don't kill me." She was only greedy for a moment and didn't want to lose her life because of this. Chapter 2971. The woman scrambled to her feet and rushed into the crowd to hide, not caring about her sorry state. As for the surrounding people who originally wanted to rob the carriage, after seeing this scene, all of them gave up on their greed. If they didn't have the ability to rob them, they would be the unlucky ones in the end. However, at this time, some people were thinking just who was sitting in the carriage. They hadn't seen the person in the carriage make a sound. Was there really someone inside? Grey Wolf sheathed his sword and returned to the beast carriage. He drove the beast carriage and continued to move forward. When the people behind saw that they had left, they also began to discuss. It seems like it. The person sitting in the carriage isn't an ordinary person. The old man stroked his beard and stared at the carriage. When the cultivators heard this and saw that the carriage was already far away, they asked, "We'll treat you to a drink. Why don't you tell us?" When the old man heard this, he said, "There's no need to drink, but if there's this." He waved his hand as if he was asking for money. Seeing this, the cultivators looked at each other, and each took out 2 gold coins and put them in the old man's hand. "Is this enough?" "He, more or less." The old man smiled and gestured for them to go to the corner of the street. He lowered his voice and said to them, "Do you know where the 2 purple gold spirit deer came from?" The cultivators looked at each other and shook their heads. "We don't know." "Why would we ask you if we knew?" "Let me tell you. They were raised by the immortal sex Venerable Mu Xian and are usually treasured." "You don't know." "The immortal sex Reverend Mu Xian and Reverend C.K. have acknowledged 2 people as their masters. They're the ones sitting in the carriage. That violet gold spirit deer was a gift from Reverend Mu Xian to his master. Tell me, for someone like that to have designs on them, isn't that courting death?" The cultivators couldn't help but be stunned. "No way. The masters of the immortal sex Venerable? Are they 2 old monsters that are over 1,000 years old?" Wrong. It said that the 2 of them have godlike appearances, outstanding temperament, and terrifying strength, and the old man stroked his beard and smiled, then looked at them again. "And what? Tell us." A few cultivators said anxiously. Their appetites had been whetted, but this old man was tormenting them. "Ah, I've already told you who the person in the carriage is. What I'm going to tell you next is another piece of news. Do you want to hear it?" The old man asked with a smile. Hearing these words and seeing the old man's appearance, the few of them glared at him, and each took out 2 gold coins and handed them to him. "All right, hurry up and tell us. Don't be too greedy." The old man weighed the gold coins in his hand and said with a smile, "Also, something happened in the Colosseum of Sky City a few days ago. It was the Jiang family who provoked those 2 people. Guess what happened in the end? Jiang clan? One of the 8 great clans of Four Corner City?" Several people asked in astonishment. "That's right. The eldest young master of the Jiang family's 2nd branch offended those 2. In the end, he lost 300,000 crystal stones, 10,000-year-old spiritual herbs, and 2 sacred artifact-level treasures. It is said that after returning, the eldest young master of the 2nd branch, the Jiang family's grand elder, and 3rd Master Jiang were all sent to the punishment hall. They are still recuperating in bed these days." Chapter 2972. The old man laughed and said mysteriously, "I just know." As he spoke, he waved his hand and turned to leave. On the other side, Huilang stopped the spirit beast carriage by the side of the road. Because Fengjiu was no longer in the mood to get off the carriage to walk around, she only told Lung Lang to go to the shop to buy some things back, while she carried the child and rested in the carriage. The interior of the carriage was very spacious, and there were also some mechanisms and a soft couch to rest on. So no matter how long she sat, she would not feel tired. "However, call mother. Come, call mother." She held the child's hands and taught him how to call people. The little guy was drooling and smacking his lips, but no one knew what he was saying. They only knew that he was very happy and giggling. "Mother, come, call mother." Fengjiu continued to teach as she took out a small handkerchief to wipe the saliva from the corner of his mouth. Sitting outside and listening to her teaching the little master how to call his mother, he could not help but smile. Huilang thought, if only the ghost doctor and his master had a child of their own. Although little Hao was cute, he was not of their blood after all. Who knew when he would be able to hold their child? "No, I don't want to go. Help, help." Suddenly, a cry came from outside. Fengjiu, who was in the car, paused for a moment. The sound was still some distance away from them, so it shouldn't be directed at them. Therefore, she continued to play with the child. Huilang, who was sitting in the carriage, looked in front curiously, and saw that something seemed to have happened. There was a faint crying sound, so he looked around and saw the surrounding people disperse. A beautiful woman ran out crying, followed by a few men chasing after her. The men rushed forward and surrounded the woman. One of them cursed a few times, then raised his hand and slapped the beautiful woman. The force was so strong that the woman fell to the ground. Hearing the loud slap, Hui Lang frowned. He didn't like hitting women. What kind of man was a man who hit women? The woman's face was swollen and she was sobbing on the ground. Before she could stand up, one of the men carried her up. Who told you to run? Run again if you have the guts. If you dare to run again, I'll break your legs. The man scolded fiercely. He carried the crying woman and was about to leave. However, due to the woman's crying and the man's cursing, little Hao, who was playing, was frightened. The little fellow was startled and began to cry. Feng Jiu hurriedly picked up the child and comforted him softly. Be good, little darling. It's okay. It's okay. Don't be afraid. Mother is here. She softly coaxed him, and the little fellow gradually stopped crying in her arms. He only blinked his beautiful watery eyes and stared at her. He looked so adorable that Feng Jiu couldn't help but lower his head and kiss his cheek. Don't be afraid. Mother is here. Mother is with little Hao. The little fellow in her arms seemed to have understood her words. A pair of small hands tightly grasped her clothes and rubbed against her chest. He listened to her heartbeat and calmed down. Chapter 2973. The man felt the pain and loosened his grip, throwing the woman to the ground. The crying woman hurriedly got up and fled into the crowd. The other men wanted to chase after her, but they all bent their knees in pain. With this delay, the woman slipped into the crowd and disappeared without a trace. Damn it! Who did this? The men stood up and shouted angrily. They glanced around and saw that the people surrounding them had retreated. Then, they looked towards Hui Lang. However, when the leader saw that the carriage was pulled by two outrageously beautiful spirit deer, he couldn't help but take another look at the luxurious spirit beast carriage. However, he didn't dare to go forward and ask. Instead, he shouted to the other men, "Quickly chase after her. Bring her back." After watching those people leave, Hui Lang scratched his head. Was it the ghost doctor? However, why did the ghost doctor save that woman? Not long after, the Lung Shuang returned with the goods and said, "Mistress, I've bought everything. I heard that this pastry shop in the city has many varieties of pastries and that they taste good. I bought some for Mistress to try." Hearing this, Feng Jiu said, "Bring them in." "Yes," the Lung Shuang replied. After opening the carriage door, he lifted the curtain and walked in. He took out the pastries from his chinkoan bag and placed them on the small table inside. "Hui Lang, let's go back," Feng Jiu said. "Okay," Hui Lang replied and rode the two purple gold spirit deer back. However, at this time, an old man walked out with a smile. He followed the spirit beast carriage to the left and asked, "Mistress, do you need a steward? I recommend myself." Feng Jiu, who was eating pastries in the carriage, raised her eyebrows when she heard this. She handed the child to the Lung Shuang and lifted the curtain to look outside. She saw an inconspicuous old man in gray walking beside the spirit beast carriage. His pace was relaxed and not slower than the spirit beast carriage. Moreover, he had a smile on his face. Seeing her lift the curtain, he also looked towards her. "I don't lack a steward," Feng Jiu said and lowered the curtain. I don't lack a steward. I can help sweep the floor or serve tea. As long as you take care of my food and shelter and give me a caddy of spirit wine every day, that's enough." A caddy of spirit wine. I can hire several servants to sweep the floor and serve tea, Feng Nine said leisurely. She ate a piece of pastry and looked at the person outside the curtain. He still didn't fall behind at all. One had to know that the speed of the spirit beast carriage wasn't slow, but this person was leisurely following beside it. It could be seen that he had some skill. However, she could not tell the old man's cultivation level with just a glance. Was he hiding his strength? Who was this person? Why did he recommend himself to be her steward? "Mistress, I'm all alone. I've been starving for several days. Please be kind and take me in. You're too old. I'm afraid you can't sweep the floor well. I'm afraid you'll knock over the teacups when I serve tea. What's the use of having you around? Fengjiu said casually. She leaned on the soft couch and chatted with the old man outside the carriage. Chapter 2974. As the old man spoke, he saw that the people in the spirit beast carriage did not speak, so he continued to talk to himself until they reached Fengjiu's residence. The door opened, and the flying beast carriage entered, while the old man was locked outside. "Sorry, that's it. I've already recommended myself the entire way, but they're still so heartless." The old man shouted outside, talking to himself. After circling the residence once, he squatted in a corner in front of their residence to rest. "Master, who's that old man outside? He's squatting in front of our door, and it looks like he doesn't want to leave," Lang Hua said. When the door closed, the old man kept pacing around outside and did not leave. "He followed us halfway. I don't know where he came from," Fengjiu said as he fed Hao. "Ignore him. If he can't enter, he'll leave." Seeing this, Lang Hua didn't bother with the old man outside and said, "Master, Qingsheng is preparing to leave tonight. Luo Yu and the others are planning to go out on a mission tomorrow. Their first mission is a level 2 escort mission." "I understand," Fengjiu responded. After feeding little Hao, he handed him over to Lang Hua and returned to the courtyard to concoct medicine. Night fell. After bidding farewell to her, Qingsheng disguised herself and left from the back of the mountain. She left Four Corner City in the middle of the night. As the night deepened, the old man who was squatting outside the mansion slipped into the mansion due to the cold wind and drizzle. He found a place to take shelter from the wind and rain and lay down to rest. No one in the residence noticed his arrival because there was a formation set up here. To enter the residence from outside, one had to pass through the formation first. However, the formation in the residence did not give off any warning, so they did not know that the old man had sneaked in. On the morning of the next day, Lang Hua was patrolling the estate. When he arrived at the outer courtyard and saw the old man lying at the entrance, his pupils constricted slightly. He walked up to the old man and sized him up. At this moment, the old man was still sleeping soundly, and it seemed as if he didn't notice that someone was approaching. "How did you come in?" Lang Hua asked, staring at the old man. He looked around. The array formation was not touched, the door was not damaged, and the barrier that covered the entire residence was not broken. Then, how did this person come in so quietly? The old man continued to snore as if he did not hear him. He continued to sleep without making a sound or even moving. Seeing this, Lang Hua raised his hand and a wind blade slashed out towards the old man. It was also at this moment that the old man who was sleeping soundly flipped over and leaped up, dodging his attack. At the same time, he rubbed his eyes and looked at Lang Hua with displeasure as he said angrily, "Kid, why don't you know the rules? How can you attack an old man like me? If you hurt an old man like me, I'll stick to you and not leave. How did you come in?" Lang Hua stared at him and asked. To be able to enter their residence without anyone noticing, this old man was not ordinary. He did not treat him as an ordinary old man. "That's how I got in. How else?" Chapter 2975. "Oh, is that true?" Fengjiu's voice drifted over. The two men followed the voice and saw Fengjiu, dressed in casual clothes, slowly walking over. "Master," Lang Hua called out, "this old man slept here last night and didn't cause any damage to the surroundings. I don't know how he got in." "Ayaya, what madam? She's just a young and beautiful fairy." The old man narrowed his eyes and smiled as he stared at Fengjiu. He sized up Fengjiu and said, "Why don't you call her Miss instead?" Fengjiu walked over and looked at the old man. "Why aren't you leaving? What are you doing here? You even trespassed into my residence. Do you really want to stay and be my butler? Food, lodging, and wine are all provided." The old man smiled at Fengjiu. "It's a good deal. There are some rules here that cannot be broken. Don't worry, I won't cause trouble." The old man waved his hand. Hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at him and said, "If that's the case, then come with me first." With that, he turned and walked inside. Seeing this, the old man followed. Feng Jiu went around the array and came to a training ground inside. He said, "It's early in the morning and I want to stretch my muscles and bones. Why don't you practice with me?" The old man who followed behind him stopped and looked around. His gaze fell on Feng Jiu, and he said with a smile, "Practice with you? But I can't really go all out." Hearing this, Feng Jiu's mouth twitched. He glanced at him speechlessly and listened to him speak in distress. "Tell me, if this old man uses all his strength, you definitely won't be his opponent. But you're this old man's bread and butter. If this old man defeats you, what will you do if you lose face and drive me away?" Feng Jiu's eyelids twitched. He said calmly, "I won't. If I give you some face and purposely lose to you, then you might think I'm useless and not let me be your butler. Tell me, wouldn't I be wasting my time?" Feng Jiu glanced at him. In the next moment, his figure flashed and his palm struck at the old man. He was so fast that the old man was stunned. He stepped back and easily dodged Feng Jiu's attack. He turned and ran. "Don't. Let's talk nicely. Don't get physical." The old man shouted and looked for a place to hide. However, he saw that this place was empty. There was no place to hide, even if he wanted to. In a flash, a fist came swinging over. "Ah!" He groaned, covered his eyes, and shouted at Feng Jiu, "I'm telling you, don't come here again. If you touch me again, I won't be polite with you. I didn't ask you to be polite with me. If you don't fight back, I won't be merciful." Feng Jiu said as he moved and punched again. "Fine, you forced me to do this." The old man shouted angrily. He released the hand covering his eyes and gathered spiritual energy to punch at Feng Jiu. Seeing this, Feng Jiu curled her lips into a smile. The two of them fought back and forth in the arena. As they fought, she discovered that the old man's strength was unfathomable. After fighting for a while, she felt that his strength should be above hers. Why did such a strong person come to be her butler for no reason? Chapter 2976. His master was no match for that old man. Feng Jiu looked at the smiling old man and asked, "Are you really going to stay?" "Yes, I'm going to stay." He chuckled. "I'll guard the door for you. I promise I won't let a fly in." Feng Jiu smiled. "You're such a strong person. Wouldn't it be beneath you to guard the door for me?" He waved his hand. No, I have nowhere to go. Your residence is great. You even provide food, lodging, and wine. It's already very good." Feng Jiu stared at him for a while before asking, "How should I address you?" "Haha, just call me Lao Mei," the old man said with a smile. "Lung Hua, arrange a place for him to stay. Tell him what to pay attention to in our residence." Feng Jiu instructed Lung Hua. "Yes," Lung Hua replied. Then he said to the old man, "Follow me." "Ah, I knew you were a good person. You would definitely take me in." He looked at Feng Jiu with a smile and turned to leave with Lung Hua. At the same time, he said cheerfully, "This is great. I finally have a place to stay. I don't have to wander anymore." Feng Jiu watched the old man leave until he could no longer see him. Then he walked out. He couldn't see through this old man, but he was sure of one thing. He wanted to stay here. But what was he going to do here? Since he couldn't see through him, he might as well wait and see. After a long time, would he not be able to see through him? The old man followed Lung Hua into the inner courtyard. He looked around, and when he heard a child's giggling, his eyes moved slightly. He asked with a smile, "Why do I hear a child's voice? Are there children in the residence?" Lung Hua turned to look at him. Seeing the smile on his face and a hint of curiosity, he said, "That's the young master of the residence." Hearing this, the old man didn't ask any more questions. However, when he walked inside, he just happened to see the black-clothed woman walking out with the child in her arms. Lung Shuang looked at the man Lung Hua brought in and asked, "Why is he here?" "Sis, this is Elder Mei." As Lung Hua spoke, he glanced at the old man and said, "This morning he snuck in by himself and slept at the gate. Master asked him to stay and guard the gate. I'll take him to the courtyard to settle down. I'll come back to find you later." After hearing this, Lung Shuang didn't ask any more questions and nodded. "Aya, this child is so cute. She's white and chubby and has a likable appearance. She's really cute. The old man took a step forward and stared at little Hao with an expression of extreme fondness. He asked, "Can I hug him? He's so cute. He must be so soft to hug." Long Shuang took a step back with the baby in his arms and stared at him warily. "Aren't you going to the yard? Hurry up and go." Seeing this, the old man looked regretful and muttered, "That chubby boy is so interesting. I wanted to hug him and play with him. I can't even touch him." After watching the two of them leave, Long Shuang carried little Hao into the garden and walked him around. When he saw Fengjiu walking over, he walked up and called out, "Master." Fengjiu reached out to hold little Hao's hand and played with him. He asked, "Did you see Elder Mei?" Chapter 2977. Let's take a look first. I don't know what he does for a living. Fengjiu smiled and teased Hao. We should be able to tell after a while. But for now, we know that he shouldn't be a threat to us. Hearing her words, Long Shuang nodded. "Yes, I understand. Take Hao to play. I'm going back to take a bath and change my clothes," Fengjiu said, and kissed the little guy before heading inside. In the courtyard, Long Hua had already left. Elder Mei sat at the table and drank some water. His eyes were filled with unconcealable excitement. He drank 2 cups of water in the room to calm himself down. Then, he calmed himself down and walked out with a smile on his face. Long Hua had already told Du Fan and the others about Elder Mei's stay. Luo Yu and the others could not believe that an old man could be stronger than Fengjiu. Hence, they went to Elder Mei's courtyard. "What do you want?" When Elder Mei, who had just left the hospital, saw the few people blocking the entrance of the hospital, he raised his eyelids and glanced at them. As his gaze swept past them, he had a rough idea of their strength. "You're Elder Mei? We heard from Long Hua that you're very good at fighting. Since you have nothing to do now, why don't you spar with us?" Luo Yu grinned and stared at Elder Mei. He did not think that this old man was anything special. "Are you trying to bully an old man like me with your numbers?" Elder Mei shouted and moved to the side, looking for an opportunity to escape. "Why would we do that? We're all from the mansion. We just want to spar with you," Luo Yu said with a smile. "That's not good. If the young miss finds out, she'll say that I'm bullying you. If that happens, I won't be able to keep my job." Elder Mei waved his hand and moved to the side, trying to avoid them. Luo Yu and Du Fan looked at each other and smiled. "Why would we? We won't go too far, and it won't hurt your life. Come, we're all family. Don't be so restrained." Hearing this, Elder Mei's gaze flickered. "So we're a family now? This old man is all alone. I didn't expect that there would be a time when I have a family." He looked at them and said, "All right, since all of you are treating me, Old Mei, as a family member, I will naturally follow your wishes and spar with you. However, let's make things clear. If you lose, you can't fall out with me. If we don't fall out, we won't be so immoral." The few of them laughed and signaled with their eyes. A few of them then pounced forward. Only Fan Lin took a few steps back and did not participate in their practice. When Old Mei saw this, a hint of a smile flashed through his eyes. With a flicker of his body, his fists shot out like shadows, aiming for their faces. "Ah, not my face, not my face." Bang, bang, bang. Hiss. "Ah." For a moment, the sound of fists hitting the ground and the cries of pain resounded in the courtyard, attracting Long Hua, who was in front, to quickly come over to check what was going on. However, he didn't expect that when he arrived and saw this scene, the corner of his mouth twitched and he couldn't help but smile. Hiss. God damn it. It hurts so much. A few of us can't even land a single hit on him. What a loss. Hiss. My face, is my face swollen? It's swollen like a pig's head. Chapter 2978. Your makeup looks pretty good. Fengjiu picked up a mouthful of side dishes and said unhurriedly, "Master." Luo Yu caressed his swollen face, which had already been applied with medicine, and said, "We've embarrassed you." Fengjiu smiled. "How could that be? It's not like I'm the one with a swollen face. You guys are the ones who have been painted." The few of them moved their mouths and sighed silently. How could they have known that the old man was really that powerful? If they had known, they wouldn't have gone up to look for a beating. Didn't you guys say that you're going out on a mission tomorrow? You're going with this face? The employer probably won't be at ease. She chuckled and took a sip of wine. But this is also good. It's only right that I get painted. Master, that elder May is so powerful. Why did he come to our residence? What's he doing here? If you leave him in our residence, will something happen? Luo, you asked worriedly. Rather than letting him watch from the shadows, it's better to put him in the open. For what I can see, he shouldn't be a threat. You guys don't have to worry about the matters in the residence. Go without worry. Fengjiu glanced at them and said, be careful when you're outside. Don't be so careless. If something happens, I won't be able to take care of you. Master, don't worry. We know. The few of them said, then we'll go back and apply some medicine. After saying that, they bowed and left. The next morning, the few of them went out, along with Hui Lang. After they left, the residents seemed to have quieted down a lot. Fengjiu entered the space to cultivate. He only came out at noon and lay on the soft couch in the courtyard, resting with a book covering his face. Lung Hua walked in and called, Master, the city's alchemist guild sent an invitation. Read it. Fengjiu said lazily. Yes. Lung Hua responded and explained the gist of it to her. He's inviting Mistress to the Alchemist Guild tomorrow afternoon. He said that there's a pill master exchange event, and he wants to invite Mistress to attend. Reject it, Fengjiu said faintly. He was not interested at all. Yes. Lung Hua responded and put away the invitation. He then said the Jiang clan, one of the 8 great clans in the city, sent an invitation. They said that tomorrow is their clan head's birthday, and they want to invite Master to their residence. Jiang clan. Under the cover of the book, his lips curled up slightly. This Jiang family is quite interesting. They actually want to invite me to their residence. It's just that I don't have a good impression of the Jiang family, so I don't really want to go. Hearing this, Lung Hua smiled and said, Then I'll reject it on behalf of Master. But there is one that Master might be interested in. Oh, what is it? Fengjiu asked. Hearing him say this, she was somewhat curious. The city's largest auction house, Treasure Heaven Pavilion, will be holding an auction tomorrow. It said that there are many good things. Master, are you interested in taking a look? Fengjiu removed the book covering his face and said, Auction house? I could go take a look. You arrange it tomorrow. As he spoke, he paused and asked again, Then Elder May has been guarding the entrance all this time? He's been dozing off at the entrance all this time, Lung Hua said. When he thought of Elder May, he was also very puzzled. Why would a person whose strength was even higher than their master be guarding the door at this time? Chapter 2979. It was rare for her to encounter someone stronger than her. It would be a pity if she didn't use this opportunity to practice and improve her combat strength. When Lung Hua saw this, he walked out and called Elder May to the training field. When Elder May heard this, he muttered helplessly, Practice again. She can't beat me. It's the same no matter how much she practices. He shook his head and went to the training field. As he said, Fengjiu couldn't beat him. The two of them practiced for an entire afternoon until Elder May shouted, panting, I can't. If I continue, I'll lose my life. How can an old man like me compete with you young people? I can't. As he spoke, he retreated. I need to go back and rest. As he spoke, he ran away as fast as he could. Fengjiu smiled. She waved her hands and wiped away the sweat on her face. She felt refreshed. It had been a long time since she had practiced so freely. However, as expected, different levels of strength led to different speeds. Her attacks were always half a beat slower than Elder May's. She couldn't hit him. However, after this kind of training, her body movement and dodging skills had improved. It wasn't like she didn't gain anything. She went to the courtyard, planning to go back and take a bath and change her clothes. After Elder May left, he ran into Lung Hua and the child on his way to the courtyard. When he saw Lung Hua, he stroked his beard and smiled. Lung Hua, you're carrying little Hao out to play again. Ah, this is great. You're not married yet, and you're already taking care of a child. You'll be much better at taking care of your own child in the future. When he heard this, Lung Hua glanced at him and asked, "What are you doing here again?" "Hee, I'm just about to go back to the courtyard after training with the young miss. I didn't expect to run into you guys." He smiled and narrowed his eyes. His gaze fell on the child, and he said, "How did you raise this little guy? He's so chubby. My heart itches when I see him. I really want to carry him over and play with him." "Not everyone can hug the little master," Lung Shuang said as he carried the giggling Hao and walked past him. "Since you want to go back to the courtyard, then go back quickly. I still have to take the little master to the master's place. I don't have time to chat with you here." "All right, go ahead then." He waved his hand and stood in the same spot as he watched them leave. Only when they could no longer be seen did he slowly walk into the courtyard while stroking his beard. "It's also a blessing," he said softly, and the smile on his face deepened. However, no one heard what he said, and no one knew what he meant. That night, the Plum Blossom Guardian who was on night watch was patrolling around with his hands clasped behind his back while humming a small tune. When he arrived at the back door, he saw two figures sneaking in. Just as they were about to step into the formation and trigger it, the Plum Blossom Guardian dodged to the side and chopped down with his hand like a knife. In an instant, the Plum Blossom Guardian knocked them unconscious and pulled them up. He pulled down the black cloth covering their faces and looked at them. He laughed in a low voice. "You dare to barge into this residence with such little strength? You really don't know what's good for you." He grabbed the unconscious Plum Blossom Guardian's collars and happily dragged them away. He planned to get some rewards from them tomorrow. The next morning, when Fengjiu was about to go out, he saw Elder Mei excitedly dragging two men in black into the courtyard. Chapter 2980. Isn't this part of your duty? Why do you need more wine? Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and glanced at him. Don't forget, who was the one who said that food, lodging, and 500 grams of wine would be taken care of? Even a fly wouldn't be able to fly in. Now, even if someone was caught sneaking in, it would only be your duty. However, adding 500 grams of spirit wine isn't out of the question, Fengjiu said with a smile. Come with me today and be my coachman. I'll give you 500 grams of spirit wine when we get back. Elder Mei's mouth twitched. Half a kilogram of spirit wine would make him coachman? She was probably the only one who could say something like that. Why didn't she take a look at his strength? How could he be reduced to being a coachman? Thinking of this, he sighed. Fine, I'll be the coachman. When are we leaving? We'll be leaving soon, Fengjiu said. All right, I'll deal with these two thieves first, Elder Mei said as he dragged the two unconscious people out. They left early in the morning. Fengjiu only brought Elder Mei as his coachman. As for Lung Hua, he stayed in a mansion to look after everything. In Four Corner City, the two dazzling purple gold spirit deer had almost become the symbol of Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mo's. Even if very few people in the city were familiar with Xianyuan Mo's, they knew that once the spirit deer carriage came out, it would be either Xianyuan Mo's or Fengjiu sitting inside. They passed through the city and arrived at the Treasure Heaven Pavilion. Fengjiu alighted from the spirit beast carriage and said to Elder Mei, Wait for me in the carriage. When Elder Mei heard this, he asked in astonishment, You don't need me to follow you? It wouldn't be good if no one followed you, right? Fengjiu pursed his lips and smiled. It's only in this building. What could possibly happen? You could just wait in this spirit beast carriage. As he spoke, Fengjiu turned and walked inside. He was welcomed by a servant girl and sat down in the first row. Spirit tea, fruits, and pastries were served. Fengjiu sat in the first row. The left and right seats were still empty. Because it was rather dark inside, she vaguely knew that the people in the first row hadn't arrived yet. She sat diagonally while drinking spirit tea and eating, watching people come in one after another. And the first row was gradually filled with people. Most of the people here today, so they didn't recognize Fengjiu. They only knew that the woman in red was very beautiful in the faint light. Fengjiu didn't care about the surrounding gazes. After all, it was too common, so it became natural. She was thinking that the few things in the auction house were quite good. If she could buy them, then she would buy them. If she couldn't, then she would think of another way. Compared to the lively auction house, on the other side, Luo Yu, who was resting on the side of the road, was holding a mirror to look at his face. When he saw that the swelling had subsided, but there were still some bruises around his eyes, he couldn't help but sigh. I've been walking with this face all this time. Fan Lin smiled at the side. It's already much better. It's just some bruises. At least it's not swollen to the point where you can't see. You're still talking about it. You really don't have the code of brotherhood. We all went up, but you retreated. Luo Yu glanced at Fan Lin's uninjured face and snorted to express his dissatisfaction. Chapter 2981. Hearing this, they didn't say anything else. At that time, Lung Hua had told them, but they didn't believe him. How could such a powerful person like their master lose to an old man? That was why they wanted to give it a try. Who knew that the old man would specifically pick their faces to hit? Who could they blame? They could only blame themselves. The few of them silently took out their rations and ate. At this moment, a middle-aged man who was resting among them gestured to an old man. The old man stood up and walked in front of Du Fan, asking, May I ask, how much longer do we have to rest? Looking at these people with bruises on their faces, they had been scared witless the entire journey. Didn't they say that these people were very powerful? They were even special-class mercenaries from the Mercenary Union. How could they have been beaten to such a state? Were their abilities up to par? Along the way, he didn't even dare to rest in case an accident happened. Let's go. Let's finish this mission and hurry back. Hui Lang stood up and patted the grass off his body. The others also stood up. Luo Yu walked in front of the old man and patted him on the shoulder, saying, Don't worry, it'll be fine. We'll definitely escort you back safely. The mission they had accepted this time was a level 2 escort mission. The main task was to escort these people back. However, according to what they knew, the middle-aged man seemed to have some kind of treasure on him. They were worried that an accident would happen on the way back. So they spent a large amount of money on a level 2 escort mission. Seeing that they had all stood up, the middle-aged man walked forward and cupped his hands, saying, Everyone, when this Yang safely arrives at the residence, I'll definitely have good wine and good food to thank you all. Please take care of us on this journey. Master Yang, don't worry. Get on the spirit beast carriage. We'll continue our journey and try to reach the next town before nightfall. Du Fan said with a smile. Let him get on the carriage first. All right. The middle-aged man replied and got on the spirit beast carriage with the old man. The remaining 2 guards followed beside the carriage. The one driving the carriage was Gu Mo. After entering the beast carriage, the old man waved his hand and set up a soundproof barrier to prevent the people outside from hearing their voices. He said, Master, I feel uneasy letting these people escort us. Look at their faces, they're all beaten up. And that surnamed Luo, I don't know how many times he's taken out his mirror along the way. The old man sighed softly. He was speechless at these strange people. He only knew that these people didn't seem to be very reliable. Could they really escort them home safely? Don't worry, I've specially asked people from the Mercenary Union. They're strong enough to become special-class mercenaries. The middle-aged man said. Although he said that, it was obvious that his heart had been in his throat the entire time. After all, as the old man said, these people didn't seem to be reliable at all. He had never seen a man who would hold a mirror and look at his own face all the way. There was also another man who was holding a fan and looked like a scholar. He was also fanning himself all the way. If they weren't wearing the same black mercenary uniform, he would have mistaken them for scholars. Moreover, he couldn't see through their strength and didn't know what level they were at. Chapter 2982. Yes, the old man replied and removed the soundproof barrier. He bent over and got out of the carriage, sitting beside Guimo. Little brother, are you tired? Do you want me to drive you? No need, Guimo said and continued driving the beast carriage. The old man sat at the side and watched. Seeing Luo Yu and the others riding on horses, he asked with a smile, You are a team of 6. Who is the leader of the mercenary team? Ha! We take turns being the leader. Today, I will be the leader. Tomorrow, he will be the leader. Luo Yu laughed loudly. Hearing this, the old man's mouth twitched. These few people were really casual in their mercenary team. So casual that he almost couldn't continue to ask. Ahem. The old man coughed softly and asked again, "Then how many times have you accepted this mission?" "The first time. You are our first mission as a registered mercenary team." Huilang grinned and continued the conversation. Seeing the old man's expression change, he couldn't help but laugh. "You don't have to worry. Although it is our first time as mercenaries, we are much more experienced than other mercenaries." "Ah, yes, yes." The old man smiled stiffly and nodded. He almost wanted to go into the carriage and ask his master why he found a group of mercenaries who had never accepted a mission to escort them. This was really risky. "You are registered mercenaries in Four Corner City. That means you are from Four Corner City?" The old man asked again. "No, we just moved here not long ago. Moreover, we're not born to be mercenaries." Luo Yu grinned and said, "We were sent out by my master to gain experience. That is why we formed a mercenary team to accept missions when we have nothing to do." Hearing this, the middle-aged man in the beast carriage couldn't help but be surprised. They actually had a master? And it was their master who sent them out to gain experience? Generally speaking, if they were guards, they should be by their master's side. Why would they be sent out to gain experience? This was really strange. When the old man heard this, he was also surprised. Just as he was about to ask again, the galloping beast suddenly stopped. The old man, who was caught off guard, was almost thrown out. Fortunately, Guillermo reached out and stabilized him before pushing him into the beast carriage behind him. "Go in, don't come out." The old man was instantly pushed inside, causing his expression to change. The middle-aged man in the beast carriage also tensed up at this moment. He pulled open the curtains and looked outside with a grave expression. His pupils constricted when he saw what was happening. There were actually more than 30 men in black. His expression turned solemn as he stared outside. He could feel that in an instant. Even the air was filled with a chilling, killing intent. Du Fan rode on his horse and waved the fan in his hand. He smiled and said, "This journey has been boring enough. If there wasn't such an ambush, I really don't know what's the point of accepting this mission." "That's right. I've been waiting for a long time, but he only came out now." Luo Yu grinned and rubbed his fists as he stared at the men in black in front. His face was filled with excitement. Gu Mo and Fan Lin, protect the beast carriage. Let's practice with these people. As Luo Yu spoke, he took the lead to leap off the back of his horse and attack the black-clothed men in front of him. Chapter 2983. When the old man in the spirit beast carriage saw this scene, his face was full of astonishment. They didn't even use a weapon to defeat the man in black with a single punch. Just as he was thinking, he saw the few of them step forward. Each of them was in charge of a tight defense, making it impossible for the men in black to break through their defensive perimeter. After watching for a while, the middle-aged man felt relieved. Even if they hadn't dealt with those men, he could see that these people were very strong. Each of them could fight against 10 or even 100 people. Although the attacks of the men in black were swift and fierce, they couldn't do anything to them. The surrounding air was filled with swift and fierce air, and traces of killing intent filled the air. Sitting in the carriage, Master Yang looked at the scholarly Du Fan who was holding a fan. With a wave of the fan in his hand, a swift and fierce air blade shot out. It wasn't inferior to those sharp long swords. Only at this moment did he realize that the seemingly unremarkable fan was actually a weapon. Following the fall of the black-clothed men, the smell of blood in the air began to spread. Screams of agony rang out from the mountain path, causing the heart of the old man in the carriage to tighten. These unruly people were actually so powerful. He had been worried all along the way, but now it seemed that they didn't have to worry anymore. But if these people were so powerful, why did they come here to become mercenaries? Could it be that it was really as they said, that their master had called them out for training? Seeing his men fall one by one, the leader of the men in black clenched his teeth and shouted, "Who are you people? Why are you meddling in other people's business? Do you still need to ask? Don't you see our mercenary badges? We're mercenaries." Huilang grinned and pointed at the badge on his arm. Hearing this, the man in black narrowed his eyes and said, "I'll pay 10 times the price. Help me take their lives." Give me the space ring of the middle-aged man. How about it? When the middle-aged man in the spirit beast carriage heard this, he glanced at Luo Yu and the others and felt relieved. Judging from the way these people handled things, they wouldn't do such a thing. However, when the old man in the spirit beast carriage heard this, his heart tightened. 10 times the price? This was a huge temptation. Would they not be able to resist this temptation and kill them? Nothing. Du Fan said coldly as he waved the fan in his hand. This is our first mission. How can we mess it up? Wouldn't that be destroying his own reputation? Brothers, don't you agree? Ha ha ha. Of course, we're planning to make a name for ourselves. How can we mess it up because of this? Luo Yu flashed forward and snatched the sword from one of the black-robed men. He waved his hand and slashed at the black-robed man. Ah! A miserable cry sounded out as a corpse appeared on the ground, as well as a pool of blood. Seeing this, the leader of the black-clothed men gritted his teeth and gestured, "Retreat." Damn it! Where did they find such perverted escorts? If he continued to fight, he and the rest of his men would all die here. Seeing that the men in black had retreated, the old man in the beast carriage let out a sigh of relief. He looked at them with excitement in his eyes. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. It seems that we don't have to worry for the rest of the journey. Chapter 2984. When the middle-aged man saw this, he walked out of the carriage and bowed solemnly to them. Everyone, please accept my bow. Old Master Yang, there's no need for this. Du Fan extended his hand and did not accept the bow. He only said, this is what we should do. Since they had accepted this mission, they would escort them safely to their destination. Naturally, nothing would happen on the way. Luo Yu glanced at the corpses on the ground and smiled. Come, let's collect the spoils of war. Before they left, their master had instructed that the spoils of war from the enemies they killed in the future would belong to them. In other words, they did not need to hand over the space rings, Chinquin bags, and other valuables they obtained from the dead people. Although they had obtained quite a lot of valuables in the past, this method of splitting the spoils of war made them look forward to it even more. When the middle-aged man, the old man, and the 2 guards beside the horse saw them keep the Chinquin bags they obtained from the men in black, they could not help but be slightly surprised, because they did not give any to Gu Mo and Fan Lin, who were driving the carriage. When the old man saw this, he could not help but ask curiously, are you splitting the spoils of war? No, we are getting more for the work we did. Luo Yu smiled and looked at Gu Mo and Fan Lin. Actually, I feel that Master's method of splitting the spoils is quite good. It is not bad. You will be driving the carriage later, Gu Mo said. All right, Luo Yu smiled. After dealing with the corpses, he pulled the horse to the side of the carriage. Here, you can have it. Let me drive. Hence, after the group was organized, they continued to move forward. After this, old Master Yang and the old man were already relieved. They thought that they had really profited from this level 2 mission and hired this mercenary group with only 6 people. On the other side, in the auction house, Fengjiu supported her chin with one hand as she watched the auction on the stage. 2 items had already been auctioned, but she did not see anything that caught her interest. As she was thinking, she suddenly felt someone caressing her thigh. She turned her head slightly and glanced at the man sitting next to her. He looked to be about 35 or 36 years old and was looking at her. He smiled apologetically and said, Sorry, I accidentally touched you. When Fengjiu heard this, the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Her clear eyes fell on him as she said casually, It's all right. When a man heard this, the smile on his face deepened, and he asked, How should I address you? Are they from Sifong City? Fengjiu turned her eyes away and did not look at him again. However, when she heard the voice by her ear, a dark light flashed through her eyes. She reached out her hand towards the small table with the teacups on it. As she waved her sleeve, a fragrant wind filled the air. When the man smelled the fragrance, he couldn't help but take a deep breath. The sound of the auction continued on the stage. Fengjiu watched as the next item was brought up for auction. As the red cloth was lifted, Many people below began to discuss it. The man from the auction house introduced the item to the crowd. At this moment, the man sitting next to her rubbed his temples and shook his head. He felt a little listless. Chapter 2985. With the bidding of the auction item on the stage, the man sitting next to Fengjiu also raised a sign and shouted, 2,000 crystal stones. 2,500 crystal stones. 5,000 crystal stones. The man shouted. Hearing this price, many people glanced at him. Seeing that he had increased so much all of a sudden, they couldn't help but pause for a moment. Someone paused for a moment, then added another 500 crystal stones. That person shouted a higher price again. As the price of the crystal stones became higher and higher, the number of people shouting became fewer and fewer. At this moment, the auctioneer on the stage shouted, 50,000 crystal stones going once, 50,000 crystal stones going twice, 70,000. Fengjiu raised his sign and shouted unhurriedly, 75,000. The man shouted again, 100,000. Fengjiu raised his sign leisurely, 110,000, 150,000, 190,000 crystal stones. The man raised his sign again, which made the man waiting on the side a little anxious. He wanted to stop him several times, but he was glared at by the man. 200,000 crystal stones. As soon as Fengjiu's words came out, the crowd went into an uproar. The auction item on the stage was a mid-level defensive artifact. Tens of thousands of crystal stones was already a high price, but he didn't expect it to be called for a price of more than 200,000 crystal stones. This was not a small amount. Second master, you can't bid anymore. We only brought 250,000 crystal coins. The man whispered. He was already as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. 250,000. The man shouted again. He only knew that there seemed to be a voice in his mind urging him to buy the auction item. The voice in his mind almost dominated his actions, making him involuntarily follow the voice. Until, when the price was shouted, his eyes were already a little red. But this time, he didn't hear anyone shouting a price. 250,000 crystal stones going once. 250,000 crystal stones going twice. 250,000 crystal stones going thrice. Sold. The third auction item will be won by the seventh buyer. Please go backstage to settle the bill and receive the item. The auctioneer on the stage said, and someone came to ask the man to leave. The man stood up in a daze and followed those people. He didn't recover for a long time until he was taken to the back to collect the crystal stones. His whole body suddenly woke up. He looked at the people around him who were smiling at him. Then, he looked at his bodyguard who was crying. He asked, "What's wrong?" "Second master, you spent all 250,000 crystal stones just to buy a mid-grade magic weapon. The blood jade ginseng that we're going to buy this time hasn't been auctioned yet. How are we going to explain this when we return?" The guard asked with a sullen face, looking at him with a hopeful expression. "Second master, you spent such a high price to buy this thing. Do you have other uses for it?" The man was dumbfounded. How is this possible? This master, this is your auction item. Please accept it." The steward of the auction house handed the auction item to him. The man quickly took it and looked at it. He almost fainted. He screamed, "I bought this? How is that possible?" Chapter 2986. How is this possible? How could I spend such a high price on something like this? His face was filled with disbelief as he glared at the guard. "Why didn't you stop me?" "Second master, I tried to stop you, but you—" He wanted to cry, but had no tears. He had clearly tried to stop him, but as soon as he did, he glared at him as if he wanted to eat him alive. What else could he do? "But why did I buy it? I didn't want to buy it at all. Moreover, I bought it at such an expensive price. This. He thought about how the 250,000 crystal stones were given to him by the head of the family to bid for the blood jade ginseng. Now, he hadn't even seen the blood jade ginseng and had already spent all the money. How was he going to explain this when he returned? Just as he was thinking, he suddenly felt a throbbing pain in his chest. His face instantly turned pale, and cold sweat seeped out of his forehead. His entire body convulsed and fell to the ground. Second master. The guard cried out in alarm and hurriedly supported him. Someone come quickly! Someone come quickly! The steward of the building was about to leave after handing over the items, but when he saw this scene, he hurriedly turned back. Help him to the back first. We have a doctor in the building. Fungio, who was sitting in the first row, looked at the next auction item. Seeing that it was an aged spiritual medicine, he raised a sign and shouted the price. In the end, he wanted at the price of 37,000 crystal stones. Miss Fong, would you like to settle the bill first or later? The steward asked with a smile and a respectful attitude. His attitude was completely different from the others, causing many people to raise their eyebrows. Who is that person? Why is even the steward of the auction building so polite? A middle-aged man asked a servant girl who was waiting in the building. The servant girl didn't know who that person was, so she only said softly, "I don't know." Hearing this, the middle-aged man was surprised and looked at the person beside him. Brother Lin, do you know her? Haha, of course. In Square City, there's no one who doesn't know her, the other middle-aged man said with a smile. Hearing this, the middle-aged man was even more curious. Oh, what do you mean? Could it be that she has a great background? That is indeed the case. Another person said, and it's extraordinary. When the auction is over, come to my place for a few drinks, and I'll tell you about it slowly. That's great. I haven't paid Brother Lin a visit since I came to Four Corner City. The two of them chatted as they looked at the items on the stage and listened to the voices calling out bids. Soon, the middle-aged man from before noticed that as long as the woman in red called out a price, most of the people in Four Corner City wouldn't call out a price. Those who would call out bids were people from other places. However, in the end, they were unable to outbid the woman in red because no one knew if the woman in red would suddenly stop bidding after bidding a high price. After all, the reason why the third item had been auctioned off at such a high price was because of this woman. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been auctioned off at such a high price. Therefore, those people from other places only acted according to their ability and did not dare to force a bid. In the backyard of the auction house, a doctor was diagnosing the convulsing man. After examining the convulsing man for a while, he took a few steps back and came to the table. Chapter 2987. Does a master have heart palpitations? The doctor inquired. Heart palpitations? The guard was startled and shook his head. No, my master has never had heart palpitations before and has never experienced such a situation before. The doctor glanced at him and said, but based on what you said earlier, your master's heart palpitations were triggered by a huge change in mood. It didn't happen before, so maybe it didn't happen before. This time, it might be because he was affected by something. But my second master didn't. The guard still wanted to say something, but was interrupted by the doctor. Don't you understand? It didn't happen before, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen in his body. The reason why it didn't happen before was because he didn't receive a huge shock. Or maybe it's because of the huge shock this time. In short, your master's current condition is heart palpitations. The guard was stunned. He thought for a while and asked, then how is my second master now? Is he in danger? When will he wake up? Wake up? Hee, that's hard to say. Heart palpitations are usually caused by an external invasion. His mind is restless and his mood fluctuates violently. His condition seems to be quite serious. You should hurry and inform your clan to send someone to bring him back. If you find a famous doctor, he might be able to be treated. If you can't find a famous doctor, I'm afraid he'll be in a coma and never wake up. Hearing this, the guard panicked and hurriedly said, I will immediately inform the clan and ask the doctor to prescribe some medicine for my second master to take and ease his condition. The doctor thought for a while and nodded. All right. As he spoke, he wrote a prescription for him. Take this prescription and get the medicine. Brew a few for him to drink. If he can't drink it, force it down his throat and see how his condition is. Thank you. The guard hurriedly thanked him and sent him out. Turning back, he saw his second master lying on the bed and hurriedly used the sound transmission Jade token to report to the clan. On the other side, after Fengjiu paid the crystal stones for the items she bought, the manager who personally received her said, "Young Miss Feng, my house's tower master invites you to meet upstairs." Hearing this, Fengjiu raised her brows. "Your house's tower master? I don't know him." "Hee. Young Miss Feng will get to know him when you go up. My house lord said that he has met young Miss Feng before." As the steward spoke, he gestured for her to enter. Seeing this, Fengjiu nodded. "All right." He then followed the manager into the building. He went upstairs and entered a private room. He saw a man sitting inside. It was the owner of the slave market. "Miss Feng, we meet again." The man smiled and stood up, gesturing to Fengjiu. Fengjiu glanced at him and walked over. "So it's young Master Tan. I didn't expect this auction house to be one of your businesses." "That's because Miss Feng just happened to come to my business. Speaking of which, this is also fate." He sat down with a smile, poured a cup of wine for Fengjiu, and said, "Please." Fengjiu raised her wine cup and took a sip. She asked, "May I know why Your Excellency is looking for me?" She casually looked around. Chapter 2988. Cooperation. Fengjiu's lips curled up slightly. "I don't have anything to cooperate with you in." "Haha, Miss Feng, don't reject me so quickly. Let me finish." He smiled and looked at her, saying, "I know that Miss Feng has an extraordinary background and is quite capable. However, a mere four-corner city is not enough to represent anything. Compared to the strength and cultivation of a heavenly god, I feel that Miss Feng's alchemy skills and the name of Alchemy Venerable can be used as an opportunity to spread more." He picked up the wine cup and took a sip. Playing with the wine cup in his hand, he said, "And my auction house can help Miss Feng spread the name of Alchemy Venerate and push Miss Feng to a higher level. What does Miss Feng think?" "Nothing much." Fengjiu drank the wine and said, "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." She said lightly, put down the wine cup, and stood up. She brushed her robe and walked out. Seeing this, the man stood up and said, "Let me see you out." Fengjiu stopped and turned her head slightly to look at the man who was striding over. He said with a smile, "Even if we can't cooperate, we can still be friends." As he said this, he gestured for her to leave and personally saw her out. As she walked out, the man smiled and said, "By the way, the person sitting next to Miss Feng just now was diagnosed with heart palpitations. He's still unconscious, but his guard has already informed his family." "I don't know him. What's the point of telling me?" Fengjiu said lightly. When she came out, she saw Elder May waiting in the spirit deer carriage. She nodded to the person beside her and said goodbye. Seeing Fengjiu walk away, Elder May's eyes flickered. He said slowly in a low voice, "My name is Tan Haoyan." Hearing this, Fengjiu's footsteps paused. However, she did not turn around. Instead, she walked toward the spirit deer carriage. Elder May got down from the spirit deer carriage and glanced at Tan Haoyan. He then moved a small stool for Fengjiu to step on. He chuckled and said, "Miss, did you attract another man when you went out? If that person in the mansion saw the way he looked at you, they would probably fight." Fengjiu glanced at him and said, "Have you met that person in the mansion?" Elder May walked into the spirit deer carriage and sat down. Then he also got on the spirit deer carriage and drove it away. "Yes, I've met you two before I enter the mansion," Elder May said with a smile. "You two are a good match. But I'm curious, you two haven't consummated your marriage." Fengjiu was sitting in the car with her eyes closed. When she heard this, she opened her eyes and looked outside. She looked at Elder May through the curtain and said, "You're quite nosy. It seems that you have too much free time." Ahem. Elder May coughed lightly and changed the topic. He asked, "Miss, did you manage to get anything when you went in?" "V.E. Miss, there are a few people following us. Sit tight. I'll speed up and get rid of them," Elder May said as he sped up the spirit deer carriage. Fengjiu said, "This is the main street. Don't go too fast. Don't hit people. Slow down and go out of the city." "Okay." Eldame said. He slowed down the carriage and went out of the city. When they reached the main street outside the city, he stopped the spirit deer carriage and turned around to ask, "Miss, this person is following us. He doesn't seem to be with us. Do you want to come out and take a look?" Chapter 2989. The corner of Elder May's mouth twitched. "Miss, I don't think I should be responsible for this. Since when did he become her coachman?" However, Fengjiu didn't say anything in the carriage. It was as if he had already fallen asleep. At this moment, several masked men jumped out. "You in the carriage, come out." They saw that there was only an old coachman in the carriage, and there was only a woman in red in the carriage. Therefore, they didn't take them seriously. "Hee, are you foreigners?" The old coachman stroked his beard and asked with a smile. When those people heard this, they glared at the old coachman and shouted fiercely, "Old man, get out if you don't want to die." "Hey, I should be the one saying that to you. Hurry up and leave. You can still live if you leave now. If you don't leave now, it'll be difficult for you to survive later." The old coachman looked at them and shook his head. He sighed softly. "Only foreigners would dare to follow her all the way. You must be tired of living. You're courting death." Being lectured by an old man, one of the men was enraged. He held the sword in his hand and stabbed forward. However, who would have thought that the sword would be bounced away with a clang? The blade of the sword was shaken by a force and emitted a sword hum. With a hum, the man holding the sword couldn't even hold it. Clang! The sword in his hand fell to the ground. The man was shocked and took a few steps back. He stared at Mei Zhe as if he had seen a ghost. You, are you leaving or not? If not, I'll send you off." As Mei Zhe spoke, she gathered a hidden force in her palm. Just as she was about to attack, the man cried out in alarm and hurriedly retreated with the other masked men. When the two groups of people in the dark saw this, they couldn't help but be stunned. That's it. They thought that those people would snatch the spirit deer carriage and the item that the woman in red bid for. They didn't expect that the old coachman didn't even make a move. Those people ran away. However, how could an old coachman scare them? For a moment, the people in the dark were discussing in low voices. Fengjiu knew that the old coachman had let those people go. His indifferent voice came from the house. "Are you afraid that I'm not in enough trouble? Or are you deliberately making enemies for me? I wonder if letting them go like this will cause endless trouble in the future. They probably won't dare to come again," Old May said. Then he sighed lightly and continued, "My strength is too strong. It won't be easy for me to make a move. If others find out, they will say that I'm bullying the young." Hearing this, Fengjiu got down from the spirit deer carriage and walked on a mountain path. He breathed in the fresh air and said, "Okay, since you said so, I'll show you. Take a look. What are you looking at?" The old man asked, slightly startled. Fengjiu didn't say much. She just said to the people hiding in the dark, "Since you're not leaving, then come out." The two groups of people in the dark were slightly startled. They had followed her from the auction house all the way here, not daring to reveal even the slightest bit of their aura. How did she know? Right now, no matter what, she already knew. There was no point in hiding anymore. Thus, the two groups of people rushed out. As soon as they came out, they attacked Fengjiu with swords in their hands. Someone even shouted, "Those two deer are purple gold spirit deer. They're also very precious." Chapter 2990. Fengjiu glanced at the fainted crowd and said to Old May, "I didn't expect you to be the kind of person who would show mercy. Actually, I just felt that they weren't a threat to us, so I just wanted to teach them a lesson." Old May chuckled. As he spoke, Fengjiu walked forward and squatted down, taking everything from them. Seeing this, the corner of his mouth twitched. "You're already so rich, yet you're still robbing others? These people wanted to rob me from the start. If I only knocked them out, wouldn't that be too light of a punishment? Moreover, haven't you heard of the saying, spending money to ward off disaster?" Fengjiu said with a calm expression as he plundered the belongings of those people and put them into his space. Old May pursed his lips and said in a low voice, "The way I see it, you're more like a bandit." Fengjiu chuckled. Collecting things is my hobby, especially those who offended me. I won't be polite." She paused and looked at him meaningfully. "That's why you better not have any bad intentions. Otherwise, you won't be able to ward off disaster with just money." Old May's heart skipped a beat. He stroked his beard and smiled. "What bad intentions can I have? Don't think too much. I'm an honest person." As he said that, he heard a series of footsteps approaching them. He turned his head slightly and looked in the direction of the city gate. He saw 30 to 40 cultivators rushing toward them. You're not here for us, right?" Old May blinked and asked. "What do you think?" Fengjiu said casually and glanced at those people. "You said you wanted me to take a look. Is this what you meant? You knew they would send people here?" Old May frowned as he looked at those people. He felt that human nature was really fickle. He had spared their lives and allowed them to leave. Unexpectedly, they were so reckless as to send people to besiege them. He hadn't come out for many years. Had the world become like this? Fengjiu was already sitting outside the spirit deer carriage. She looked at those people casually, as if she wasn't worried about being besieged. Not to mention her strength. Old May's strength alone was enough to deal with these people. These people had brought people to besiege them not long after. She guessed that they hadn't asked for permission from their superiors. Otherwise, why would they do something so stupid? Tan Haoyan had invited her to cooperate and said that he could spread her name as a pill venerate. Actually, it didn't matter to her. She didn't care. What was important was that she could protect those she wanted to protect and do what she wanted to do. That was enough. Ever since they had descended the immortal ascension stairs and arrived here, they had been keeping a high profile in order to quickly gain a foothold in Four Corner City. In less than half a month, the various forces in the city had a certain understanding of them and would not dare to offend them. At the very least, she knew that no one would dare to lay a hand on them as long as they cultivated and settled down in Four Corner City. Only these outsiders who didn't know the situation would rush here to their deaths like this. She didn't think of herself as a good person. She would never show mercy to those who tried to offend her again and again. Chapter 2991. This old man's strength seemed to be very powerful. His previous attack had been repelled by force, causing him to lose his grip. This old man. Could it be that this old man wasn't a coachman? The older man recognized the two spirit beasts pulling the carriage as the rare purple gold spirit deer. He couldn't help but be inwardly shocked. How could someone who owned a purple gold spirit deer be an ordinary person? Had they gotten themselves into big trouble? Thinking of this, he raised his hand and gestured for the people around the beast carriage to step back. At this time, he retracted his arrogance and looked at the woman in red sitting on the spirit deer carriage. He carefully asked, "May I ask how I should address you?" Fengjiu curled her lips and played with her black hair. She glanced at him with a faint smile, but didn't say anything. Seeing this, the man's heart sank, and he quickly said, "Today, we have offended you. Please don't blame us. It's because my family's madam has a strange illness and can't see the sun. I heard that only the blood jade ginseng can cure her. We were ordered by the family head to bid for the blood jade ginseng, but we didn't expect." Hearing this, Elder May, who was about to make a move, paused and looked at Fengjiu. Seeing that she didn't give him a signal, he stood still. A strange illness that can't see the sun? Fengjiu twirled the hair in her hand and supported her chin with her other hand. She casually said, "The blood jade ginseng isn't suitable for people with strange illnesses. Moreover, this blood jade ginseng isn't an ordinary medicine. It can't be used for ordinary illnesses." Seeing that she didn't give the order to kill, the older man sighed in relief and said, "We didn't mean to offend you. Please be magnanimous and forgive us this time." Fengjiu glanced at them and said leisurely, "But I was frightened." Hearing this, Elder May, who was stroking his beard, paused and pulled out a few strands of his white beard. He hissed in pain and looked at the strands of beard in his hand with a distressed expression. He didn't have many strands of beard to begin with, and now he pulled out a few more strands. He really felt distressed. Hearing this, the man couldn't recover for a moment. Was he frightened? What did she mean? What was she trying to do? Seeing the man standing there in a daze, Old May coughed lightly and gestured to the man. The man reacted instantly and said to the people behind him, "Quick, take off all the chinkuan bags from your waist." Everyone was slightly startled when they heard this, but they still took out their chinkuan bags and handed them over. The man collected everyone's chinkuan pouches and handed them over. This is just a small token of our appreciation. Although it's a small token of respect, it also represents our apologies. Please accept it on our behalf, Senior. As he spoke, he looked at Fengjiu eagerly. This should be enough, right? Let's go. Fengjiu said and let them leave. The man immediately let out a sigh of relief. After thanking her, he hurriedly left with his men. After walking for a distance, he heard someone ask, "Why did you give her our chinkuan bags?" As the voices gradually faded away, Elder May turned around and looked at Fengjiu with a smile. "If you say that you're not a bandit, no one will believe you." Fengjiu glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. "Bring them over. Young mistress, do you want to split them equally? If not, you can take 60% and I can take 40%. If not, you can take 70% and I can take 30%, Elder May said as he walked forward with the chinkuan pouches. Chapter 2992. Fengjiu said leisurely. With a flick of her sleeve, she collected all the chinkuan pouches and entered the spirit deer carriage. "Let's go back. Don't tarry for too long." Elder May drove the carriage back. On the way back, he asked, "Young miss, aren't you proficient in medicine? What kind of illness can't be exposed to sunlight?" Inside the carriage, Fengjiu's eyes flickered. She asked, "Who told you I'm proficient in medicine?" The old man outside paused for a moment, then said, "Those who know about alchemy also know a bit about medicine. You're a venerable alchemist, so your medical skills must be very high." Fengjiu didn't say anything. She just closed her eyes and rested. When they returned to the residence, she handed the chinkuan pouches to Leng Hua. "Sort these things out." Leng Hua took the chinkuan pouches and looked at them. After he agreed and saw her go in, he went to the old man outside and asked, "What happened when you went out? How did you get these chinkuan pouches?" Let me tell you, your master is a bandit. He robbed a lot of things when he went out. No wonder he has money without doing anything." The old man sighed softly. He glanced at the chinkuan pouches in Leng Hua's arms and said, "Do you need this old man to help you distribute them? Just give me a few gold coins, and I'll go get some wine." Leng Hua glanced at him and asked, "Is 1.5 caddies of wine not enough for you?" It's hard to say. Sometimes I want to drink more. Sometimes I drink less. Keep some for when I want to drink. Drinking too much wine is bad for the body." As Leng Hua spoke, he put away the chinkuan pouches and took out 2 sets of clothes from his space. "These are for you. Go back and try to see if they fit. If they don't, I'll have someone change them for you." As he spoke, he handed the clothes to him and left. Looking at the clothes and boots in his hand, Major was slightly startled. He closed his eyes and stood quietly for a while. Finally, he put the clothes away and turned around to return to the courtyard. The next day, CK and Mu Xian arrived at the mansion. When they saw the mansion, Mu Xian glanced at C. Quebec. "Master and the others live here. This place looks pretty good. For Square City is a precious land. Even if you have the money, you might not be able to buy a house here." As CK spoke, he clasped his hands behind his back and looked ahead. "I wonder why Master has summoned us here. We're already here. Won't we know once we go in?" As Mu Xian spoke, she went forward and knocked on the door. Not long after, a drunk old man opened the door and looked outside. "Who is it? Who are you looking for?" Elder May glanced at the 2 people outside and asked. Looking at the drunk and sleepy old man, CK and Mu Xian looked at each other and said, "We're CK and Mu Xian from the Immortal Sect. We're here, too." Before they could finish their words, the door closed with a bang. The 2 of them were stunned and didn't react for a long time. After the door closed, Elder May was also stunned. He took a sip of wine from the wine pot at his waist and smacked his lips. "Who were you talking about? CK and Mu Xian from the Immortal Sect? Why does it sound so familiar?" He stroked his beard. Suddenly, he sobered up. CK and Mu Xin from the Immortal Sect? Aren't they the two venerables from the Immortal Sect who became Fengjiu's disciples? Chapter 2993. The two of them glanced at Elder May and asked, "Is our master home?" "Yes, yes. She's home every day. I'll bring you in," Elder May said with a smile. After letting them in, he closed the door behind them and led them to the front hall. Take a seat and rest. I'll go invite her over." As Meija spoke, she asked them to take a seat and went outside to ask the servants to serve tea. Only then did she walk towards Fengjiu's courtyard. When Leng Hua walked towards the front yard, he saw a servant girl carrying tea. When he heard that a guest had come to the residence and that the guest was his master's disciple, he took the tea from the servant girl and personally brought it to the front hall. When he arrived at the front hall, he saw two middle-aged men sitting inside. Both of them were dressed in gray and looked inconspicuous. However, the aura they exuded was not to be ignored. "Have a cup of tea first," Leng Hua smiled as he served them tea. At the same time, he sized them up discreetly. When CK and Mu Xin saw a young man enter, they couldn't help but be slightly surprised. Their gazes fell on Leng Hua and sized him up for a while. Regardless of whether it was his temperament, appearance, or strength, he was outstanding. They asked, "What's your name?" "My name is Leng Hua," he said gently. He then added, "I'm the residence's housekeeper." Hearing this, the two of them's eyes flickered. Housekeeper? He came to the residence to be their housekeeper at such a young age? When the two of them saw that their master hadn't arrived yet, they followed Leng Hua into the hall and chatted. In the backyard, Fengjiu was concocting medicine and conducting experiments. Elder May quickly walked in and shouted, "Young miss, there are two people in front." One said that they're CK and the other said that they're Mu Xin. They're looking for their master. Fengjiu was busy with his work. He didn't even raise his head as he said, "Let them sit for a while. I'll be there when I'm done." Meija stuck her head out and looked. She didn't leave. Instead, she asked curiously, "What are these things?" "Try them and you'll know." Hearing her words, Elder May couldn't help but take a sniff out of curiosity. Seeing that there were some colorful medicinal pills on the side, he asked, "What kind of medicinal pills are these? Why is the color so strange?" He didn't hear any sounds of her refining pills when he was in the residence, so it should be some small things, right? Was it sugar? Or was it medicine? Or was it poison? As he thought about it, he couldn't help but pick one up to take a look. After studying it for a long time, he still couldn't figure out what it was. However, the medicinal fragrance was very fragrant. At this time, while he was studying the pill, he suddenly stepped on something and slipped. His entire body fell backwards, and the pill in his hand flew into the air. As he cried out in alarm, it flew into the air and fell into his mouth. Yes, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and his eyes widened. He clutched his neck with both hands as if he wanted to cough out the pill. Fengjiu, who was at the side, was slightly stunned. He couldn't help but chuckle. "I didn't know you were so eager to help me test the medicine." Elder May swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He felt that the pill had already dissolved. He couldn't help but ask anxiously, "Miss, what kind of medicine did I just take? What's the use of it? How would I know what kind of medicine you took? I didn't even pay attention to it," Fengjiu said innocently. She looked at him and smiled. "Besides, these are all newly refined medicinal pills. Their levels are relatively low. I didn't even have the time to test them. I don't even know what those medicinal pills are used for." Chapter 2994. It's not poison. Don't worry. It's just medicine. As for what kind of effect it has, you'll find out in a moment. She chuckled as she sorted the pills according to their color. Hearing this, Elder May faintly felt a trace of unease. "I only smelled it, and I only got a little bit of the medicinal foam. It shouldn't be a problem, right? It won't harm your life. You can rest assured about that." Fengjiu chuckled as she stood up. She looked at the old man and gently brushed off the medicine that had accidentally gotten on her clothes. She then walked out. "I'll go take a look first. You can go back and rest. When the medicine takes effect later, just let me know." Elder May swallowed his saliva when he heard this. Even she didn't know the effects of these pills. Then what exactly was she up to? When he thought about how he had swallowed those pills himself, he felt as if he had been forced to swallow them in silence. He returned to his room with apprehension. Rather than waiting for the medicine to take effect slowly, he thought that it would be better to stimulate the spiritual power in his body so that the pill would take effect as soon as possible. He wanted to see what this thing was. On the other side, Fengjiu walked into the front hall, and the three people in the hall stood up. "Master," Leng Hua called out, then retreated to the side. "Disciples greet Master." CK and Mu Xn stepped forward and bowed as they looked at her. "Have a seat." She gestured for them to sit down, then walked to the main seat. Leng Hua retreated, but not long after, he returned. He poured a cup of tea for her, then stood quietly to the side. "Master, are you used to living here? Did the aristocratic families in the city make things difficult for you?" CK asked with concern. In her heart, she was wondering why Master had called them here. Could it be that she had something to tell them? "It's all right." As Fengjiu spoke, her gaze fell on the two of them. With a turn of her hand, she took out 2 pills and had Leng Hua pass them to them. The two of them were stunned for a moment. They were a little surprised. "Master, this is the 9 transformations golden pill that I refined by adding the 1,000-year snow Ganoderma. I'll give one to each of you. This 9 transformation golden pill can bring the dead back to life, no matter how serious the injury or the poison is. It can even bring a dead person back to life if they take it. However, it can only be used by people who have just died not long ago. If it is used by people who have died many times, it will be useless." Hearing this, the two of them couldn't help but be shocked. Their hands holding the pill trembled as they exclaimed, This 9 revolutions golden pill can bring the dead back to life." Fengjiu glanced at them and took a sip of her tea. She said neither hurriedly nor slowly, "If they were killed directly, then they can't be saved. However, if they were seriously injured and died, as long as their body temperature is still there, taking this pill can restore their life force. This is an extremely precious pill that can bring the dead back to life. That's why I used a black seal on the outside of the pill. This way, the medicinal fragrance and medicinal properties of the pill won't be lost. Even if it comes in contact with water, it won't be diluted. Keep these 2 pills to yourselves. Don't let your immortal sect members know about them." The two of them stood up and said solemnly, "Don't worry, Master. We'll definitely treasure these pills." Chapter 2995. Master. Actually, other than being summoned by Master, we also came here because there's something else we want to tell Master. As the two spoke, they returned to their seats and sat down. They put away the pills, and their expressions became serious. Fengjiu glanced at them and asked, "What is it? Speak." The two paused for a moment and looked at each other. Mu Xi nudged CK and gestured for him to speak. She sat upright and took a few sips of tea to calm herself down. The two of them had only been apprenticed to Master for a short time and hadn't been filial to her. They didn't expect their Master to prepare such precious pills for them. It had to be said that this was a great shock to them. How many years had it been? How many years had it been since someone had done this for them? One had to know that they were supremacies in the immortal sect and patriarchs in their families. They were the only ones who cared about the immortal sect and their families. Very few people would think of doing anything for them. CK glanced at Mu Xian and cursed in his heart. "This old thing. Every time she pushes me to do something, she just hides in a corner and drinks tea." He cleared his throat and looked at Fengjiu before saying, "It's like this. Wanyan Qianhua went missing after accepting a mission from the immortal sect. Her master couldn't get in touch with her and guessed that something might have happened to her. Although it hasn't been confirmed, the news has spread among the supremacies in the immortal sect. We thought about the relationship between Wanyan Qianhua and Master, so we wanted to tell Master about this news first." Hearing this, Fengjiu frowned slightly. Lost contact? Was the mission she accepted very dangerous? Where did she go? How could she have lost contact? How did you know that something had happened to her? Every immortal sect disciple has a life jade token. 2 days ago, Her life jade token was dim and dark. In addition, we couldn't contact her, and when she was supposed to return, there was no sign of her. Thus, we deduced that she might have encountered some danger outside. CK continued. When we went down the mountain, we asked around and found out that her mission this time was to go to a remote village to collect ghosts. For her, there shouldn't be any accidents on this mission, but it's also possible that she encountered something else. Hearing this, Fengjiu pondered for a moment, then said, "Give me the location of her mission, the last place she was at when she went missing, and some related information." She paused, then said, "Oh right, also information about her family here." As soon as she said this, CK and Mu Xian looked at her at the same time. What does Master want those for? Could it be what they were thinking? She's my sworn sister. Now that something has happened to her, I naturally can't just stand by and watch. You can stay here for the night. After you have sorted out the information, give it to me. But the place for ghosts is definitely gloomy. Master is different from Wanyan Qianhua. She is a member of the ghost clan and is not afraid of ghosts. But if it is Master, I'm afraid. They couldn't help but worry. Women were of the Yin attribute. If she went to a gloomy place, she might not be able to use her strength no matter how strong she was. It's fine. Fengjiu waved her hand, indicating that it was fine. Seeing this, the two sighed. If they had known, they wouldn't have said anything. But if they didn't say anything, Master would blame them if she found out in the future. But if something happened to Master on this trip, they would also be blamed. Chapter 2996. Fengjiu looked at him. Venerable Snow Jade has already contacted the Wanyan family. It said that the family has already sent someone over. This person is Wanyan Qianhua's 13th uncle. This person's abilities are not to be underestimated. If we can travel with him, we can at least be more at ease. Fengjiu thought for a moment, then said, "That's fine. Then you two can make the arrangements." "Yes." The two of them replied and heaved a sigh of relief. Leng Hua arranged for the two of them to stay in the residence. The two of them stayed for a day and sorted out some information before handing it to Fengjiu. The next day, they left, saying that they wanted to return to the Immortal Sect to see if there was any news about Wanyan Shisan. On this day, Fengjiu was playing with little Hao in the garden and teaching him how to walk. She suddenly thought of something and exclaimed, "Leng Hua, I haven't seen Elder Mei for the past 2 days. I haven't seen him. He's been cooped up in his room for the past 2 days." Leng Hua said, then asked, "Is Mistress looking for him? I'll go get him." Fengjiu smiled and said, "That day, he accidentally ate one of my elixirs. I've concocted it and haven't tested it yet. I don't know what it does." She smiled and picked up little Howard. "Let's go take a look. Let's see what kind of elixir it is that he won't even leave his room." And so, she carried little Howard, followed by Leng Hua, and walked towards Elder Mei's courtyard. At this moment, Elder Mei was sitting on the edge of the bed with a mournful look on his face as he touched his bald head. In just one night, all of his hair had fallen off. Moreover, it was as smooth as a mirror and felt slippery to the touch. He picked up the mirror beside the bed and looked at it. The old man in the mirror had a bald head and looked very strange. Seeing this, he couldn't help but slap his hand. "Who told you to be so nosy? Who told you to be nosy? Now I'm bald. How am I supposed to go out and meet people? My lifetime of brilliance is ruined just like that." Just as he was mumbling to himself, he heard footsteps coming from outside. He immediately jumped off the bed and ran to the window to take a look. What he saw made him anxious. "Why are they here? I'm like this. He anxiously walked around the room, looking for something. Finally, he took a piece of clothing and wrapped it around his head. "Elder Mei, why didn't you go out? Why are you hiding inside?" Fengjiu asked as he entered the courtyard. "Miss, why are you here? Why are you looking for me?" Elder Mei asked from inside. "I'm here to check on you. Come out. Since you ate my pill, you should at least show me the effects of that pill." Fengjiu sat down by the stone table in the courtyard and played with the giggling little Howard. Listening to the voices outside, Elder Mei sighed softly. Then he opened the door and walked out. When he arrived outside, he saw that the child was there as well. He walked up to her and said, "This is how it is. Look." He pointed at his head, which was wrapped in his clothes. "Why are you wrapping your head in clothing?" Fengjiu was slightly surprised. "Don't tell me you've lost all your hair." Hearing that, Elder May pursed his lips and took off the clothes that were wrapped around his head. He said unhappily, "Isn't that right? Look, it's already so shiny, yet still so slippery. How embarrassing." Chapter 2997. Yeah. He. The little guy waved his little hands in Fengjiu's arms, his eyes sparkling as he looked at the bald Elder May. He leaned forward, wanted to touch his head. Fengjiu saw this and waved his hand. Come closer." Elder May went forward and looked at little Hao, with a smile. "Kid, let me hug you, okay?" Yeah. Little Hao laughed happily and hugged Elder May's bald head with his two little hands. Elder May couldn't help but smile when he saw how much the little guy liked his bald head. He suddenly felt that there was nothing wrong with being bald. Fengjiu handed little Hao over. Elder May was stunned and a little excited. I can hug him. You really want me to hug you?" "Go ahead. Didn't you want to hug him?" Fengjiu said and gestured for him to take it. Seeing this, Elder May swallowed his saliva and wiped his hands on his body. Only then did he reach out and carefully carry the child over. Hugging the child's soft body, he could not help but chuckle. While weighing the child's weight, he said with a smile, "You're so good-looking. One look, and I can tell that you're blessed. This weight is not light at all. He'll definitely be tall in the future." Lung Shuang and Lung Hua watched from the side. Their eyes flickered, but they didn't say anything. Fengjiu was watching as well. She watched old May's actions, his expression, and the look in his eyes. She rested her cheek on her hand and said in a seemingly casual manner, "Isn't he blessed? If he hadn't met me back then and I hadn't raised him as my son, I'm afraid he would have been fed to those beasts." Elder May, who was carrying the child, tightened his grip. He looked at the giggling child in his arms and said with pity, "That's right. This child isn't fated to die. Otherwise, he wouldn't have met you guys." "Ha ha, yeah." The little guy seemed to know that he was being talked about. He giggled and kept making yeah sounds. "Elder May, I'll probably be out for a while, and I won't be back for a while. Mose is in seclusion now, and the rest of the people in the mansion are also out on missions. Only Lung Hua and Lung Shuang are left. I'll have to trouble you to take care of them when I'm not around, especially Hao." When Elder May heard this, he looked at her. "Miss, are you going out?" "Yes, one of my sworn sisters has gone missing. I have to go and see what's going on." She spoke slowly and looked at him, asking, "If I leave the manor to you to guard, will you agree?" Hearing that, Old May gave her a deep look and said, "Don't worry. I will guard this mansion and won't let anything happen to them. Once you are outside, you don't have to worry about the mansion." Fengjiu smiled. "Okay, I'm relieved to hear that." She nodded and stood up. "I have to go back and prepare some things. As for your hair, I'll see if it's long. If it's not long, I'll make some medicine for you." Elder May smiled and said, "It's okay. This little guy likes to touch my bald head. It doesn't matter if it's long or not. You guys have seen my image anyway, so I don't care anymore." "Okay," Fengjiu said and looked at Lung Shuang. "Howard should eat something too. You can carry him back and feed him." Chapter 2998. Fengjiu turned and left. Lung Shuang followed with the child in his arms. Lung Hua trailed half a step behind and said to Elder May, "There's food in the kitchen. If you're hungry, go take a look." With that, he left as well. Elder May watched them leave. He rubbed his bald head, then looked down at himself. He casually cast a dust cleansing spell, and he looked like a brand new person from head to toe. He stroked his beard and smiled, then walked out. He was going to the kitchen to see if there was anything he could fill his stomach with. For someone of his cultivation level, it didn't matter if he ate or not. He didn't know how many years he had been fasting. For cultivators, eating was just to satisfy their hunger. Of course, if it was spirit rice or beast meat, it was a different story. However, when he thought of what Fengjiu had said to him, he He couldn't help but wonder, did she see through me? That's why she dared to entrust me with such a task. On the other side, Feng Jiu returned to the courtyard. Leng Shuang and Leng Hua also came. When they entered the room, they looked at each other and asked, "Master, do you know where Elder Mei came from?" Feng Jiu sat down in the room and poured himself a cup of water. He smiled and said, "I don't know where he came from, but I think I can vaguely guess why he came here. He seems to treat the little master differently." Leng Hua thought for a moment and decided to share his observations. "Yes, because he came for little Hao." Feng Jiu played with the teacup as he spoke. "If I'm not wrong, he should know about little Hao-er's background. He came here for little Hao-er. Master, don't you need to guard against him? He's so strong. What if he takes the little master away?" Leng Shuang couldn't help but ask worriedly. Feng Jiu chuckled and shook his head. "He won't. Judging from little Hao-er's situation, his parents aren't doing too well either. Compared to bringing little Hao-er back and enduring the danger, it's better for him to stay here and protect him. Don't worry. He won't take little Hao-er away, at least not now. Plus, he's very strong. With him here, even if I go out, I don't have to worry about the mansion. When I'm not in the mansion, you don't have to stop him from interacting with little Hao-er. If he wants to carry little Hao-er, let him do it. Let him teach him. This will only benefit Hao-er." Hearing this, the two nodded. Yes. Although he agreed, Leng Hua was still somewhat worried. He asked, "Master, Elder Mei hasn't admitted it. If he didn't come for the young master and has an ulterior motive, then I know what you're worried about." Feng Jiu chuckled, glanced at the two, and said with a smile, "But you don't know, I had the Fire Phoenix keep an eye on Leng Shuang's courtyard." Although Elder Mei didn't show much during the day, and he didn't do anything out of line after entering the manor, one night, he secretly snuck into Leng Shuang's courtyard to see Hao-er. Hearing this, Leng Shuang was slightly surprised. Elder Mei had snuck in her courtyard? She didn't even know about it. "Master," Leng Shuang was careless. She felt somewhat guilty. If something had happened, it would have been too late. Chapter 2999. Based on my observations over the past few days, this person can still be trusted, she said to the two of them. However, during this period of time, don't see any other guests. If anyone asks, just say that I'm in seclusion. Yes. The two of them nodded in response. Also, if Du Fan and the others come back, tell them about this matter. Tell them to be careful when they take on missions. Don't take on missions that they aren't confident in. If they encounter something that they can't handle, they can also go to the back of the mountain to look for Moze. Don't worry, Master. If they come back, we will definitely pass on your words to them. If they encounter something that they can't handle before you return, we will ask the Yama Lord for help." Leng Hua said, You may leave. I should be going out tonight under the cover of the night. As for Ying Yi, you should also inform him." "Yes." The two of them responded and left. That night, Feng Jiu quietly left in the direction of the Immortal Sect. In the Immortal Sect, she left Fire Phoenix and Lao Bai behind to guard the Immortal Sect. According to the time that CK had told her, she arrived at the foot of the Immortal Sect's mountain and waited. When the sky gradually brightened, she saw a figure come down from the Immortal Sect and walk towards the big tree. A girl? Wanyan Shursan glanced at Feng Jiu, who was resting on the tree. Seeing her in a red dress, with her black hair and beautiful face, he couldn't help but frown. "Why did you bring me a girl?" He scratched his head in annoyance and said to Feng Jiu, "Little girl, you should go back. I'll go by myself." How much trouble would it take to get a girl to follow him? Those women were all delicate, and it was extremely troublesome to take care of them. Furthermore, this was an extremely beautiful woman. That was even more unbearable. Feng Jiu jumped down and stood in front of him to size him up. She found that he was very tall. She only reached his shoulders when she stood in front of him. Moreover, his body was very strong. It could be said that he had a tiger waist and a bare back. His muscles were very developed, and he was full of manliness. His face was clear, and he looked like a tough guy. "Are you Wanyan Shur-san?" Feng Jiu asked. She thought that her sister's family seemed to be different from her. Impudent. A little girl like you should call me 13th uncle. Wanyan Shursan said in a deep voice. When his face darkened, it was quite scary. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and asked, "Didn't they mention me to you?" "They only said that there was someone who wanted to go with me and asked me to take care of him. I thought it would be a man, but it turned out to be a little girl." He frowned and said in a deep voice, "A little girl is too troublesome. I'm here to do things, not to play. What's more, that kind of place is not suitable for a little girl like you to go." Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled slightly. Wanyan Qianhua is my sworn sister. She is missing. I have to find her, so I must go. It's almost dawn now. Let's go. Don't waste time. "Oh, you and Qianhua are sworn sisters?" Wanyan Shursan stared at her from head to toe and finally smiled. "It looks a bit similar. Both of them like to wear red clothes. However, their temperaments are worlds apart." Chapter 3000. I know. It's a place with extreme negative energy. It's said that the place isn't very peaceful. My sister went there and we lost contact with her, Fengjiu said slowly. "There are ghosts in that place, and you still dare to go with me?" He asked in a deep voice, his eyes sharp. "Let's go." Fengjiu didn't say much. He took the feather from his waist, threw it out, and jumped onto it. "I didn't expect a little girl like you to be so affectionate." Only then did his expression soften. He took out his aircraft and threw it into the air. Then, he said to Fengjiu, "Follow me. If you lose me, I won't wait for you." Fengjiu smiled. He watched as Wanyan Shursan flew off on his aircraft. He chased after him unhurriedly. After some distance, they also flew higher and higher, their figures disappearing into the clouds and obscuring their traces. 2 days later, they arrived at a mountain path. Seeing that the town was not far away, Wanyan Shursan looked at Fengjiu and said, "Do you have men's clothes? Find some men's clothes and change into them. Otherwise, you'll be targeted in town." Hearing this, Fengjiu stopped in his tracks. He glanced at his red clothes and said, "Wait for me here." As he spoke, he walked towards the forest on the side of the mountain path. Wanyan Shursan sat by the roadside, drinking water and looking around. Not long after, he saw a handsome young man in green walking over. Wanyan Shursan glanced at him and then looked away. Who knew that the young man would walk in front of him? "What are you doing?" Was there something wrong with this young man? Why was he standing in front of him? Fengjiu, who was dressed in green and had disguised his face, raised his eyebrows and said, "It's me, Fengjiu." "Fengjiu?" He was stunned and his eyes widened. "Fengjiu?" He stood up and looked her up and down. "You know how to disguise yourself?" She smiled. "I know a thing or two." "Good. I couldn't tell that you had some skills." He nodded and said with satisfaction, This is good. Let's go. We've been walking on the mountain path for the past 2 days. I'll bring you to town to eat something good." As he spoke, the two of them walked towards the town. However, when the two of them arrived at the town gate and were about to enter, they felt a violent tremor from the ground, as well as a burst of laughter. Some of the people who were walking towards the town heard the noise and turned back to look. They couldn't help but be shocked when they saw what was happening. One after another, they scattered to the sides. Wanyan Shursan frowned and glanced at those young men who were riding ferocious beasts towards them. He stretched out his hand and pulled Feng Ix's collar, dragging her aside. It's like an eagle catching a chick. They were so far away. Was he afraid that she wouldn't be able to avoid them? Wanyan Shursan glanced at her and said with disgust, "You little girl, you didn't even call me Uncle Shursan all the way. If I hadn't pulled you back, you would have been knocked away by those ferocious beasts with your slow reaction." Chapter 3001. My ball. A 5 or 6-year-old child, who was being pulled by a woman, lost his grip on the cloth ball and rolled out. He immediately broke free from the woman's hand and chased after the cloth ball with his short legs. However, he did not notice that the group of ferocious beasts were already nearing the town gate. Furthermore, they did not slow down. Wa! The woman cried out in alarm. Her face turned pale, and she almost ran forward to carry her son back without thinking. However, just as she was about to carry the child, the young man in the lead had already leaped onto the ferocious beast. Seeing that the ferocious beast's front hooves were about to trample on the woman who was protecting the child in her arms, the crowd gasped in alarm. Fengjiu frowned and was about to step forward but stopped before she could take a step. Her eyes flashed as she looked at the scene in front of her. She saw the woman carrying the child and rolling under the ferocious beast's hooves to the side. It was as if someone had pushed the mother and child and helped them avoid being trampled to death. Perhaps in the eyes of others, the mother and child had been lucky enough to avoid the ferocious beast's hooves. However, in her eyes, she clearly saw two ghosts protecting them and pushing the mother and child to the side to avoid danger. Ghosts? Spirits? Her heart skipped a beat, and she turned to look at Wanyan Shur-san beside her. Wanyan Shur-san, who sensed her gaze, glared at her and asked exasperatedly, "What are you looking at me for? You need to reflect on yourself. If I hadn't followed you, you would have been in trouble just now." "Yes, I know. I'll reflect on myself." She smiled and replied smoothly. Hearing this, Wanyan Shur-san wanted to reprimand her, but his words were stuck in his throat, and he could only stare blankly. When did this little girl become so obedient? That mother and child are so lucky. I thought they would be trampled to death. That's right. They can survive under such circumstances. They're really lucky. If we were any slower, the ferocious beast's front hooves would have stepped on them. If that ferocious beast stepped on them, they would have died without a doubt. That's right, that's right. That was a close call. Fortunately, the mother and son were lucky and weren't destined to die. Fengjiu smiled as he listened to the words of the surrounding people and glanced at the woman who had already stood up with her child in her arms. He said to Wanyan Shur-san, who had a dark expression on his face, "Let's go to the town and see if there's anything delicious to eat." "Let's go," Wanyan Shur-san said as he strode inside. Here, only the footprints of the galloping beasts were left on the ground as the youths in luxurious clothes rode their ferocious beasts inside. Although the town wasn't as big as the city, it wasn't small either. When the two of them arrived, they saw that the town was bustling with activity. There were many hawkers by the roadside, and the shops on the left and right sides were also bustling with business. The two of them walked on the main street, and after 2 rounds, Wanyan Shur-san walked toward a restaurant and said to Fengjiu, "This place looks pretty good. Let's eat here." Fengjiu followed him into the restaurant and found a corner seat on the first floor to sit down. She saw that he had ordered more than 10 dishes the moment he opened his mouth. She couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Can we finish so many dishes? There were only 2 of them. They couldn't finish more than 10 dishes, right? Chapter 3002. Fengjiu poured herself a glass of wine and watched as the dishes were served one after another. Wanyan Shur-san rolled up his sleeves and began to eat. His actions were bold and unrestrained. She smiled and began to eat as well. "Do you have an enemy?" she suddenly asked. Just as she was about to put the food in her mouth, she stopped and looked at Wanyan Shur-san as she asked. Wanyan Shur-san, who was eating happily, heard this and said, "Who doesn't have enemies in the outside world? Why are you asking this?" As soon as he finished speaking, he saw her put down her chopsticks and look at him with a puzzled expression. He picked up another mouthful of food and asked, "What's wrong? You're not eating? Are these dishes not to your taste?" "These dishes have been drugged," Fengjiu said calmly. Cough, cough. Hearing this, he was caught off guard and choked. He quickly put down his chopsticks and wiped his mouth with his large hand. His voice raised slightly. "What did you say?" "I said, these dishes have been drugged." Fengjiu continued speaking. She picked up her chopsticks and sniffed each dish before putting them back. "That's impossible." Before he could finish speaking, he felt that something was wrong with his body. In particular, his spiritual energy seemed to be flowing away, and his vision was slightly blurry. He shook his head and stared at Fengjiu. "If you knew, why didn't you remind me? I wanted to remind you, but seeing that you've eaten so much, I let it go. Anyway, it's not poison, it's just medicine," Fengjiu said with a smile. Seeing him on the verge of collapse, she flipped her palm, and a pill appeared in her hand. She reached out and poured him a glass of wine. At the same time, the pill slipped from her hand into the wine. "Drink," she gestured. Seeing this, Wan Yin-San picked up the wine glass and ate the pill. He did not ask anything and try to activate the pill. After the pill entered his stomach along with the wine, he felt a wave of heat in his body. This wave of heat flowed through his body and gradually stabilized the spiritual energy that had been flowing away. Even his somewhat dizzy head gradually cleared up. "Waiter!" Wan Yin-San suddenly slammed the table and shouted. This sound shook the entire floor and attracted the attention of all the guests. "Sir, what's wrong?" The waiter and the manager hurriedly ran over and asked as they comforted the other guests and told them to eat. "I won't say much. Come and eat a few mouthfuls." Wan Yin-San stared at the two and then asked the waiter to come forward. The waiter was scared in his body. When he heard that it was just to try the dishes, too, "I told you to eat, so eat. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" He snorted loudly and his face darkened. His fierce look made the waiter not dare to say anything else. He quickly picked up his chopsticks and tried all the dishes on the table. "Sir, this dish is fine. It's delicious. What's wrong?" However, just as he finished speaking, his whole body swayed, and then he fell straight to the ground. Bang! The moment the waiter fell, the manager was frightened. What's going on?" You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.